Hailstones talk, whispers spread. Shadows dance where stories bled. Screens flash blue, headlines scream. Reality fades, just a meme. The night won't tell, but the streets still know. Underground whispers, the truth will show. City sparks, city sparks. They fly so high, fake truths crumble, can't deny. Miami Heat, Paris dreams, fighting the lies that split the seams.
Hello, 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 my darlings. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Banksy Style Live Show. I'm your host, Banksy. Also, I come to you on the streets, from the streets, as Hafiz TV. Check that out. Go to Hafiz TV. Just type it Hafiz, Hafez TV, all one word, no separations, and you will get me as the first account. Please also hit a like and subscribe on this one. So thank you for joining me on this evening. I already kind of did a live stream a few minutes ago where I was on another panel and I was just restreaming their stream. It was just something to do. Then I thought, I actually really want to do a stream tonight and I want to cover some stuff, namely a debate between Andrew Wilson and Daniel Haqiqatjou, or I believe in the Persian pronunciation is Haqiqatjou. I don't know. I know what Haqiq is. Haqiq is he's telling the truth or the truth. Haq is similar to Arabic. Haq. Haqiqatjou, I don't know. I don't know what that final part is. Anyway, Daniel Haqiqatjou, as the English would know him, is an insane person who, to be honest with you, you would think his popularity would be damaging to the anti-Islam movement, but actually he is a godsend for the anti-Islam movement, because every time he gets on stage and the ridiculous crap he spouses makes people who don't like Islam and makes people who are actually not too familiar with Islam or sort of middle of the road with Islam literally run away from anything to do with Islam. Big up Cheeky Chops. Now, before I get into this, I got to give some salutations from the last stream, which I didn't notice these individuals who were actually in the stream. So first of all, let me give salutations and blessings to Cheeky Chops and Dwayne Jones. I believe it's Dwayne Jones. I hope I got it right, man. Dwayne says, Banksy, Ghost Speaker's Corner needs to watch this review and learn from. Hopefully he Hopefully he won't marry his cousin. Yes, I think Ghost probably would need to, and a lot of Muslims do. Ghost gay. Ghost is ghost gay. Cheeky just simply says ghost gay. Yeah, he probably doesn't need to worry about reproducing with his cousins. Hopefully they won't. So anyway, thank you for the guys in the chit chats, but I also got to say some salutations to people who were in the other chat, which I didn't even see. People like Mr. Lottie, Johnny, Jay, what else? Phil the Van. More Phil, more Johnny. Slim, my man. He was in the chat in the previous stream. I didn't see any of this because I wasn't looking at this chat at all. So I did not even notice people in this chat. So Slim, big up to yourself. Salutations. Base Welshman, big up to you, my man. In the chit chat, Smoky Mad Bad. Andrew is very based. Yeah, but it's not just that, I ideologically I don't align with Andrew, but Christ, he absolutely humiliated Daniel. I was feeling bad for Daniel towards the end. It's like, man, just leave. Just go to your mother. Never take the knee. Big up to yourself and Johnny, and I believe I already said Johnny J and Slim. So yeah, I think I've given all the salutations to everyone in that previous chat. So let's start with this one. Welshie in his house. So yeah, let's dive into this bad boy and see what we can see, because this is going to be a good one. But before we get fully into the debate, as always with this channel and my other channels, to be honest, there's always has to be a comedic humor involved. And I cannot find better humor at the moment than these chaps who are currently, I think, doing some splendid work. I bring you Babylon Bee and their take on modern England.
Deadly plague sweeping over Great Britain.
Sorry, hold on.
There is a deadly plague sweeping over Great Britain. This cancerous plague threatens everything: our nation, our culture, our values, and everything we hold dear. If it is not stopped, we might lose our homeland forever. This terrible disease is bigotry. That is why, as proud citizens of Great Britain, we must all keep a stiff upper lip and do our part to avoid bigotry, racism, and Islamophobia. Here are just a few helpful tips to help you avoid the stain of bigotry whilst you're being raped, stabbed, or blown up by Pakistani migrants. When an Islamic migrant approaches you and begins repeatedly thrusting a knife into your torso or face area, remember this: white British citizens sometimes stab people too, and you should be ashamed of yourself for thinking people stabbing is a Muslim thing. While the attacker stabs you, close your eyes and try to picture him as a white male. This simple meditation will help your bias melt away like clotted cream on a toasty, crumpeted tea time. Cheers, old boy. You've done it. If you are a woman, always remember to wear modest clothing. Ideally, clothing should cover your legs, your ankle, your face, your eyes, and everything else. Take a look at Elizabeth here. Now that's an attractive and safe look for England's streets. Failing to wear the proper attire could lead to men of undetermined religion and national origin succumbing to their baser instincts, making you a target. So, do the right thing for England and cover up. That a girl, Elizabeth. Avoid regressive and offensive British terms such as cheerio, codswallop, or throw a wobbly. Instead, use more inclusive terms such as Allahu Akbar or or Death to Israel. This makes British Muslims feel welcome. If you've done all these things and still have feelings of bigotry, simply submit to the Holy Quran and acknowledge Muhammad as the one true prophet of Allah. Then, follow all the tenets of Islam, pray 5 times per day facing Mecca, and maybe even stab another British person while shouting Allahu Akbar. Congratulations! You have completely rid yourself of the stain of bigotry. And as the evil dictator Winston Churchill once said, keep calm and carry on.
Damn it, I did not unmute myself. Why didn't I unmute? I thought I did. That was so good. These boys at Babylon Bee do not disappoint. They are on it. On it. Okay. Now let us begin the actual review of the debate. Now I'm going to make it like this because I want it to not be copyrighted. So trying to make it as fair use as possible. I'm going to try and interrupt as often as possible. But sometimes I may not. So we'll go with it and see how far we get. Am I too small there? I am too small. I'm going to be a little bit bigger. Bigger it. Bigger it. I'm going to put myself... Yeah, I'm going to put myself there. Or is it better there? I don't know. Maybe there. There you go. Okay. In the name of Allah, the Great, the Merciful, and Muhammad being his prophet, let us begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Just a quick note. I want this to be a civil debate because right now there's a massive Zionist campaign to generate as much hostility between Muslims and Christians as possible. If I can say something nice about Andrew, I respect him for not being a shill for Israel. I think we can be civil, but also very critical of each other's religions without it turning vicious. The only ones who benefit from a Muslim-Christian civil war right now is Israel, which is stoking hate so that they can continue their genocide of both Muslim and Christian Palestinians while they bleed America dry.
Well, I'm glad they kicked it off with "fuck Israel." That's a good way to always start every debate, as long as we know who we hate collectively.
Let's keep that larger context in mind. So the first slide, which is best for society, Islam or Christianity? Next slide. The answer depends on which standard we use to judge, traditional or secular liberal values. Traditional values include belief in God, prayer, marriage, and gender roles, opposition to degeneracy, and commitment to nation and shared culture. Secular liberal values include individual freedom, gender equality, sexual autonomy, scientific progress, and economic advancement. If we judge by traditional values, Islam beats Christianity hands down. If we judge by secular liberal values, Christianity comes out on top. The reason for this is that Christianity, since the Enlightenment, has been reformed and adopted liberal values while eroding traditional ones. This is because Christianity is more open to evolving in a way that Islam isn't.
Well, you just negated your own point. You said that Christianity has now, or what is considered mainstream Christianity, has now become supposedly corrupted by secularism. But the fact is that that doesn't negate the fact that Christianity would still defeat Islam when it comes to traditional values, because the Bible hasn't been rewritten. So those values, those traditional values that were, on par, if not superior to Christianity, to Islam, still exist within Christianity. It's the way Christians practice Christianity that may have been tainted by secularism. So why are you saying Christianity? You should actually now distinguish the difference between Christianity and those who practice. Don't you Muslims do this all the time? Don't you always say, well, a guy who just screamed Allahu Akbar and then went kaboom doesn't represent Islam because Islam is perfect, Muslims are imperfect. But you're not giving that much grace to Christians. Christianity is perfect. It's just Christians are not perfect. But no, you blame Christianity for the state of secularism that the Christians have adopted. You just immediately became disingenuous with your opening statement.
My opponent, Andrew Wilson, claims to be a traditional Christian, but we'll see if he'll debate like a traditional Christian or like a blue-haired libtard. If he debates as a traditional Christian, he should defend Christianity. He should defend Christianity as understood before modern liberal reforms. For example, even though he's Orthodox, I doubt he'll defend Byzantine Orthodox norms, such as theocratic monarchy, the monarch's authority to define church doctrine, slavery, book bans and speech restrictions, death penalties for blasphemy, apostasy, and pagan worship, restrictions and bans on loaning money with interest, minimum marriage age of 12, bans on divorce, mandatory veiling of women with unveiled women labeled as prostitutes, lashes for fornicators, punishing married adulterers by cutting off noses or sewing them into sacks and burning them alive, execution for homosexual acts, limits on Jews through bans on Jewish proselytizing and building new synagogues. If we look at a timeline of Christianity, for 1700 years, Christianity upheld its pre-modern norms of slavery, female subordination, monarchy, punishments for blasphemy, executions for adultery. After the Enlightenment, Christians began reforming their religion to match secular values, and that liberalizing process continues today with the acceptance of homosexuality, LGBT rights, and modern feminism. Even though he's a conservative, Andrew already accepts huge chunks of this liberal reform. He's fine with abolishing slavery, rejecting monarchy, ending blasphemy, and adultery punishments. His conservatism simply draws an arbitrary line at a later stage, roughly 1950s America. But libtard progressives follow that same reform trajectory, just a few stages or steps further. Andrew isn't defending traditional Christianity, he's defending his preferred arbitrary stopping point on a progressive path he already agrees with. In other words, the difference between him and the libtards is quantitative, not qualitative. Just a dispute over where to halt the same ongoing cucking to secular liberalism. So Andrew's conservatism is not principled, it's arbitrary. Given this, I predict Andrew will debate like a blue-haired libtard today and use a pro-liberal strategy against Islam. Because again, Christianity can't beat Islam on traditional values for the simple reason that Islam isn't amenable to reform the way Christianity is. So he'll likely attack Islam exactly like a blue-haired alphabet person would by calling Islam backwards on marriage, gender roles, and scientific and economic progress. But if Andrew attacks Islam using secular liberal values, he faces a dilemma. Because tomorrow he's debating an atheist on whether Christianity or secular liberalism is better for society. So any pro-liberal standard that Andrew uses to judge Islam today, tomorrow that same liberal standard can be used by his atheist opponent to judge Christianity. For example, if he says Christianity is better than Islam because it gives women more rights and promotes more scientific progress and health, the atheist can argue that secular liberalism does even more of those things. Andrew knows this, so against the atheist tomorrow, he'll likely revert back to a traditional Christian stance, highlighting issues like LGBT, incest, and low birth rates. I'm not singling out Andrew. All Christian debaters code switch. They know Christianity isn't as based as Islam on traditional values, nor as progressive as secularism on liberal values. Christianity is stuck in the middle between traditionalism and secularism. So to win against either Islam or secularism, Christians have no choice but to code switch depending on who they're debating. Putting aside this conceptual problem with Christian apologetics, how do we know that Islam is better for society than Christianity? Again, it depends on what values we adopt. Muslim and Christians generally subscribe to traditional values. In fact, all humans, due to biology, inherently value things like belief in a creator, marriage.
I got to give it to him though. These slides, those images of Andrew as a traditional and a liberal, they are pretty good though. I mean, they're getting some L's in the room. You can see, sorry, LOLs. So yeah, he's getting some laughs. They're hitting some marks. I give it to him. The slides are pretty good.
Family and community. So let's see whether Islam or Christianity is better at promoting these things in society using the abundance of empirical data available. Let's start with a bird's eye view using the World Value Survey, a global project measuring beliefs, values, and cultural changes in over 100 countries. Their world cultural map from 2023 groups countries by religion. Protestant European countries are yellow, Orthodox is red, European Catholics are green, Latin America in light blue, and Islamic countries in gray. On the x-axis, countries that value individual self-expression and autonomy are further right on the graph. On the y-axis, countries that are more secular are higher up. The ones that have more traditional values are lower. So you can see in the bottom left, there are the Islamic countries that are more traditional, whereas the Christian countries are more secular and value individual autonomy. How about belief in God? Muslim countries show higher religiosity and belief in God than Christian ones. For example, Pew Research asked people in different countries if they believe in God. For nearly all the Muslim countries, the number was 100%, to such an extent that Pew concluded that nearly all Muslims surveyed believe in God. Another Pew dataset shows Muslim countries, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, at the top of global belief rankings, while Christian countries are...
Is that some sort of a shock? Nearly all Muslims questioned for a Pew Research said they believe in God. Yeah, but that's because they're Muslim. It's like saying all Hindus that were surveyed believed in Krishna and Vishnu. It's like, yeah, because they're Hindu. But you didn't say all Arabs, all Somalis, all Iraqis questioned. That would then break them up into the various different groups of Iraqis, whether they're secular Iraqis, atheist Iraqis, Muslim Iraqis, Christian Iraqis, so on and so forth. Of course, if you ask 100% of Muslims, are you a Muslim? Yes. Do you believe in God? Yes. Why would they identify as a Muslim if they didn't believe in God? That doesn't even make sense.
Are split, with Kenya, Ghana, and the Philippines high, but the US, Spain, and France low. What about religiosity? On this map, all Muslim countries are dark purple, showing the largest share of religious followers. Christian countries, except Latin America, are much lower, like the US, Europe, and Russia. Pew studied how important religion is to people's lives. And for Muslim countries, they're dark yellow, indicating 80 to 100% of people saying religion is very important to them, while most Christian countries are much lower in gray and blue. The 2024 Integrated Value Survey confirms this. In majority Muslim countries like Indonesia and Egypt, over 97% say religion is very important, whereas in Christian countries like Mexico, the US, Russia, and Germany, religion matters far less. Another key metric is religious switching. Pew shows Christianity in red has the largest net loss of followers, while Islam in green has the highest net gain from conversions. I think you're pretty behind on the slides.
Yeah, these slides are not called direct one-to-one with what he's saying. I think he's speaking a bit too fast.
Yeah, there it is. Right. Now let's look at family and gender roles. Muslim societies have higher rates of marriage than Christian societies. Notice how the percentage of married individuals of both Muslim women and men, indicated by the red and blue arrows, is higher than Christians, since Christians are more likely to delay or forego marriage. We can also look at divorce laws. Christian countries mostly allow no-fault divorce, while Muslim countries often have fault-based divorce or other limitations on women. When it comes to fertility, Pew Research shows that Muslims are at 2.9 globally, whereas Christians are at 2.6. And even when you break it down by region, Muslims in Europe, the Asia Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa have more children than their Christian counterparts. Muslims also have the largest families by household size. at 6.4 members per household compared to 4.5 for Christians. Due to both higher birth rate and higher net conversions, Islam is the fastest growing religion projected to meet and exceed the Christian population in 25 to 50 years. In red has the largest net loss of followers, while Islam in green has the highest net gain from conversions. I think you're pretty behind on the slides. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Now let's look at family and gender roles. Muslim societies have higher rates of marriage than Christian societies. Notice how the percentage of married individuals of both Muslim women and men, indicated by the red and blue arrows, is higher than Christians, since Christians are more likely to delay or forego marriage. We can also look at divorce laws. Christian countries mostly allow no-fault divorce, while Muslim countries...
I just want to note, it seems Madagascar, no-fault divorce is not allowed. No-fault divorce, fault-based divorce only in Madagascar and a couple of African nations, which I can't identify exactly which ones they are. It's crazy. Whilst Muslim countries, unilateral for men, consent of spouse or court for women. So these are all Islamic countries. Basically, all the men can divorce the woman, but if a woman wants to get a divorce, she has to go through the court, which is Sharia. And unilateral divorce without minimum separation period at discretion of judge. There's only a few countries in Central Europe that say they can only get divorced at discretion of a judge with purple. Damn.
Often have fault-based divorce or other limitations on women. When it comes to fertility, Pew Research shows that Muslims are at 2.9 globally, whereas Christians are at 2.6. And even when you break it down by region, Muslims in Europe, the Asia Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa have more children than their Christian counterparts.
Oh, Hindus 5.7. The Hindus are nipping at the Muslims on the birth rate thing. Everybody else is screwed.
Muslims also have the largest families by household size, at 6.4 members per household compared to 4.5 for Christians. Due to both higher birth rate and higher net conversions, Islam is the fastest growing religion projected to meet and exceed the Christian population in 25 to 50 years. How about sexual behaviors? Research in American Sociological Review show Muslims, due to religious conviction, are less likely to have premarital or extramarital sex than Christians. Some Christians might claim this is only due to self-reporting.
This is BS. Muslims can have 4 wives. So, yeah, if you can have 4 wives, then there is a chance you'll have less likely have premarital sexual or outside marriage sexual relations, because you can have 4 wives and all the concubines that your right hand possesses. He doesn't mention all those. So this is where it's a bit of a misnomer, or a bit of a side. It's taqiyya. It's taqiyya, because we know his own little homie, Mr. Muhammad Hijab, had himself a hotel side chick for many years, which he considered to be a wife. So this is pure deception, because we know Muslims, plenty of Muslims have side chicks. It's famous around the world. The Arab Emirates, the Emiratis who invite Instagram girls to use as porta potties. I mean, all of these things are infamous across the world. This nonsense about Muslims having outside marital sex is purely taqiyya. This man is like just washed with taqiyya right now.
Bias, because Muslims are less likely to admit to engaging in these behaviors, but we can account for this by benchmarking against other variables like medical abortions and death rate from HIV/AIDS, which directly correlate with extramarital sex. Data shows abortion rates are highest in Christian regions, and death from AIDS are highest in Christian countries in Africa, Russia, and Latin America, but lowest in North Africa, the Middle East, and other Muslim regions. Regarding acceptance of homosexuality, Pew shows Christian countries are far more accepting, even after controlling for economic factors. Regarding attitudes towards gender equality, World Value Survey asked whether men make better leaders than women, do men have more of a right to a job than women, etc. They took the answers to these questions to create a grading system which shows that Muslims are far below Christians. Now, if we were a bunch of liberal simps, we would count this in favor of the Christians. But since we're all red-pilled, we recognize that the Muslim countries are based and the Christians are simping. Same when it comes to other gender equality metrics. Christian countries, whether in the West or Latin America, Russia, value gender equality more than Muslims. That's a bad thing for many reasons. Looking at other societal health metrics, research shows Christian countries have much higher rates of alcohol and drug abuse. Controlling for economic differences, Muslim countries have lower homicide rates than Christian countries. Stephen Fish's book, Are Muslims Distinctive?, shows per capita murder rates are significantly lower in Muslim countries. Female homicide rates are also lower. Rates of rape and sexual violence are likewise lower in Muslim countries and highest in Christian countries. Multiple studies show that the suicide rate for Muslims is much lower than Christians. These stats show Islam outperforms Christianity in upholding religion, marriage, family, and community, making Islam better for society. We can examine why Islam consistently excels in these areas. First, First, Muslims are much more attached to religion than Christians because Islam is more compelling and intuitive than Christianity. For example, monotheism is easier to grasp than the Trinity. Islam is also more historically preserved. Carbon dating confirms that the Quran Muslims read today traces to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By contrast, the Bible has evolved through layers of editing and reflects the theology of Paul far more than the teachings of Jesus. Islam also has better preserved traditional life and family through a clear, comprehensive system of Sharia. Christianity, by contrast, offers only broad, highly malleable principles that different Christian groups interpret in conflicting and often contradictory ways. A Christian rebuttal could be that even if Islam excels at traditional values, it falls short on secular ones like individual freedom, self-expression, and scientific or economic progress. Christianity, they could argue, wins overall because it blends the best of both worlds, preserving core morals while still enabling the modern achievements of the Christian West: more freedom, science, technology, and higher GDP. This argument has fundamental problems, however. First, is Western prosperity due to Christianity or secularism? For example, how much of Western greatness comes from pre-Christian traditions like Greece and Rome? Furthermore, if Christianity drives prosperity, why haven't the oldest Christian nations like Ethiopia and Armenia matched the West's success? Likewise, recently Christianized societies like El Salvador and the Philippines have no comparable prosperity. Finally, why do more devoutly Christian societies have higher poverty and violent crime than more secularized Christian ones? Therefore, it's far from clear that Christianity is the secret sauce to scientific and economic progress. But there's a deeper problem. Mixing traditional and secular values never works. It's like mixing paint and paint thinner. Whenever societies try to combine traditional and secular values get abandoned. This is actually what has happened in the West, which was deeply Christian 200 years ago, but now has become the center of atheism and secular decay. This didn't happen overnight. This happened because Christians 150 years ago tried to mix traditional Christianity with the secular idea of progress. This happens because traditional values are based on duties. Preserving religion requires imposing duties on people to worship. Preserving family requires imposing duties limiting sexual freedom and providing care for children and the elderly. Preserving a nation requires duties to uphold shared norms, honor national symbols, or limit immigration. So preserving traditional values necessitates all these duties. The problem is duties are hard work requiring personal sacrifice. Because of this, duties necessarily restrict individual liberties while also generating inequality and discrimination. This is a problem for secular liberalism, which strives to free people burdened by duties. So the secular liberal system gradually eliminates duties to maximize individual freedom. This is done through two means: moral progress and scientific progress. Moral progress means, for example, liberating women by telling them they don't have a moral duty to serve their husbands. Scientific progress means inventing AI companies for the elderly so that little Bobby doesn't have to spend time talking to grandpa. Usually we think of progress as a good thing, but clearly progress can seriously damage society, because if you get rid of duties, this will weaken institutions of religion, family, and nation. The decay has been ongoing in the West since the 18th century, when liberal ideology kickstarted moral and scientific progress. Consequently, yes, the West has the highest GDP, but religion, family, and nation are weak, and people live as atomized individuals pursuing endless pleasure through tech-driven consumption. If you watch tech elites shaping Western society, you'll notice their transhumanist vision, Neuralink AI, etc. This is the logical endpoint of unchecked moral and scientific progress. The question is, which religion can stop this? Christianity has already adopted liberal secularism, and reformed itself by those standards. Even the most conservative Christians, like Andrew, won't take the radical steps needed to turn back the clock 200 years and stop the inevitable transhumanist future. The most radical thing that Andrew calls for is banning OnlyFans, maybe putting Christians in charge of America's government so that they can ban abortion, trans kids, and introduce public prayer. This won't slow down, let alone stop the freight train speeding humanity toward destruction. Islam, by contrast, offers the Sharia, comprehensive moral and legal, a comprehensive moral and legal framework that governs every dimension of life: individual conduct, family structure, community obligations, and social order. It does not merely tweak the secular liberal system, it represents a fundamentally different paradigm. And because Islam preserves a duty-based morality rather than dissolving it, it retains the internal resources to resist the liberal atomization and technological dehumanization.
Thank you very much for that opening from Daniel.
Good job, man. The fun thing about debate is you get to actually get in the mind of your opponent. What happened? Oh. The fun thing about debate is you get to actually get in the mind of your opponent. You get to study and dissect the things that they say and believe. After watching Daniel for hours, a few things became obvious. The first, he's a far better Muslim apologist than I am a Christian apologist, that's for sure. But he's far weaker on politics than myself and the nature of the world. The second is that he's an above-average debater, but he ain't quite God tier. See, if I were Daniel and fighting from his worldview, I'd point out Christianity is fractured and weak, that Christianity is totally incapable of fighting back against the degeneracy of our time. Its impotence has led to social categories of degeneracy at levels nobody could have predicted, especially with the advent of the internet. I would point out Muslim societies don't work that way, that Muslims have feminism and degens under control, that everything in modern-day Christians in the West are fighting for against degeneracy, Islam has already achieved in their lands. That's what I would do if I were Daniel. When talking about which is better for society, Islam or Christianity, this becomes a powerful argument. But I'd go a step further if I were Daniel. I'd also say my opponent will argue like an atheist progressive. That Andrew Wilson, the guy who promotes anti-feminist and egalitarian doctrine, is going to sit up here and act like an egalitarian progressive and cry about Islam being mean to the women and cry about Islam not being very nice to the gays. Well, you were fucking wrong. Sadly for Daniel, while this tactic would normally be effective against a sewing circle Christian, I'm not part of that cast, sir. Now, let me get into my argument for why Christianity makes better societies than Islam, and it's pretty simple. Islamic societies breed an inbred population. Next slide, please. Muslim inbreeding has been...
Oh, he's going to go in balls deep now.
occurring at a high rate for about 1,400 years since the early Islamic period, encompassing most of the land still occupied by Islam today. It spread from the 8th to the 15th century, moved into Persia, North Africa, South Asia, where it remains and has created some of the dumbest fucking human beings on planet Earth. The most common type of inbreeding is first cousin marriage. The rates of first cousin marriage in comparison to Christian nations is staggeringly high, even in comparison to regions occupied by Arab Christians. When a nation has both Christians and Muslims, Muslims are often double or higher than Christians. Example, India, Lebanon. Next slide, please. Muslim inbreeding. Oh, sorry about that. Pakistan at 65%. 65%, meaning more likely than not, you're having sex with your cousin, and if you're not, you're the weird one. Okay? For the low IQ members of MDD, that means these people are more likely than not having sex with their aunts or uncles' children. Whew, Saudi Arabia, 50 to 58%, with an average 76 IQ. Who would have thought it? UAE, 54%, 82 IQ. The crown jewel of the Arab world, you are more likely than not to be banging your first cousin. Iran, 40%. 80 IQ. Yemen, 45%, 62.9 IQ. Qatar, 30%, 80.8 IQ. Now, we're going to continue, right? Oman, 36%, 78. Syria, 39%, 74 IQ. Turkey, 25%, 86 IQ. Jordan, 32%, 80 IQ. Egypt, 32%, 76 IQ.
I just want to quickly point out these are the ones we're importing into this country, and I want to make sure that it is highlighted. Iran, 80 IQ, 40% cousin marriages. Yes, that shit happens. We know this. This is why I keep telling you lot. Stop letting these idiots in. They're my people and they're morons. We're not importing the best anymore. I'm sorry. The best came in the 80s and 90s. It's all finished now. We're just going to bring in more inbred morons from Iran, Yemen, Qatar, all of them. They're just, well, actually, Qataris are rich, so they're not probably coming over that often. But yeah, the Iraqis, the Iranians, Syrians, and then we go to sub-Saharan Africa. Lord help us all. We're literally just importing sleuths of just moronic drones. But I think that's what the government wants. They are essentially building up an army so that when the white high IQ Anglo-Saxons get pissed and take to the streets, they'll unleash these Neanderthals upon them. They'll unleash the savages.
Banging your first cousin. Iran, 40%, 80 IQ. Yemen, 45%, 62.9 IQ. Qatar, 30%, 80.8 IQ.
By the way, it seems weird that he skipped Saudi Arabia, UAE, which are at 50 to 58 and 54% respectively. They are much higher first cousin marriages than Iran, Yemen, and Qatar. But he kind of, I don't know, did you notice he skipped that? Went straight to Iran? Interesting.
Now, we're going to continue, right? Oman, 36%, 78. Syria, 39%, 74 IQ. Turkey, 25%, 86 IQ. Jordan, 32%, 80 IQ. Egypt, 32%, 76 IQ. It goes on and on and on, and it just never gets better. Next slide, please. Thank you. Compared to Christian countries, let's take a look. Usually less than 1%. Now, I wonder why Christians build better societies, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's keep going. We want to pull up the slide here, moving right along. As countries become more Christian, inbreeding declines, right? We can see this from church intervention in Spain, 20 to 30% post-Reconquista. Catholic Church banned cousin marriages for commoners, papal dispensations sold for royals. Italy, similar high rates in the medieval period. The church enforced bans over the century. France, high medieval. Canon law prohibited marriage within 4 degrees of relation. Modern Western Europe, it's not just the cultural norm, but let me tell you exactly how much of a cultural norm it is. Even in European nations where marrying your first cousin is legal, they don't do it because of the ecclesiology. Isn't that wild? Africa shows the more Christians and less Muslim the societies become, the better they do. Let's just take a look at Nigeria. Okay, we can go down the list here. 50% Nigeria, 20 to 30% first cousin marriage. Isn't that crazy? Now let's move right on down. You can see South Africa, Muslim 1.5%. Very low on to negligible in the national prevalence of cousin fucking. You can look at the list It's pretty comprehensive. We can continue to go, right? The bottom 20 least productive sub-Saharan African countries. Wouldn't you know it, they're all Muslim. 99% Muslim in Somalia. Whew, very high. 60% first cousins. Anybody ever hear a joke about Somalian IQ? Let's look over at Niger. 99% Muslim. 60% cousin marriage. First cousin marriage. Let's take a look at Muslims. When we're taking a look at Malil, it's a 90% population, high cousin marriage. In other words, everywhere Islam goes, the IQ goes like this because they all are fucking their cousins. Not joking. Go over to the next slide, please. I want to show you this is a famous case. These are called the rat people of Pakistan. It's a condition known as microphalics. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I have no idea. And it's caused by excessive inbreeding. When's the last time you went to a European country and saw that? You don't see it. Inbreed, yeah.
I just wanna make a note. I don't know actually what that person said. Somebody made a joke. Yeah, coming to a hotel near you. I just want to point that out. They'll be staying at your local Holiday Inn Express very soon.
Now, hang on. Muslim, it's a 90% population. Everywhere Islam goes, the IQ goes like this because they all are fucking their cousins. Not joking. Go over to the next slide, please. I want to show you this is a famous case. These are called the rat people of Pakistan. It's a condition known as microphalics. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I have no idea. And it's caused by excessive inbreeding. When's the last time you went to a European country and saw that? You don't see it. Inbreed, yeah.
Someone said London. Someone said London. Oh, no. We're becoming the piss take joke of the world here in London. It's taking the piss now. Look at this. People are just taking the piss out of London.
Now, hang on. Next slide, please. As we continue, let's just take a look here at the casual link between cousin humping and low IQ. Basically, there's increased homozygosity, I think that's how it's pronounced, for deleterious recessive genes, and it is the strongest causal link for why the IQs are so low. Genetic risk. Inbreeding raises the chances of inheriting 2 copies of harmful recessive genes. Brain development impact. Harmful genes can impair neurodevelopment, reducing cognitive potential. IQ reduction evidence. First cousin offspring lose 3 to 4 points on average, and closer inbreeding can cause larger deficits. They've been at it for 1,400 years. Whew. Higher prevalence equals greater risk. Populations with widespread cousin marriage show more individuals with lower cognitive performance. Generational compounding over successful generations. Harmful genes accumulate. One of the big Muslim copes you'll hear from Daniel tonight. Well, it's only 1.5% for genetic problems for normal people who aren't having sex with their first cousin. Well, that's true. He says it only doubles to 3%. That's very low. No, it compounds. See, if you hump your first cousin and then those kids hump their first cousin and their kids are et cetera, et cetera, et cetera down the line, guess what happens to your IQ? Guess what? You'll never guess. Anybody got a guess? It goes down. The negative consequences of a low IQ. 80 IQ versus 100 IQ person. Income 50 to 70% lower. Welfare dependency 4 to 6 times higher. Literacy less than 10% at less than 85 IQ. Obesity up almost 2 times. Chronic disease up to almost 2.5 times. Life expectancy less than 70 IQ or 75 IQ down 5 to 10 years. Why? Because, well, you might just look down the barrel of that shotgun when you're cleaning it. Moving over, arrests and incarcerations 3 to 8 times higher. Violent offenses 4 to 6 times higher. Teen pregnancy 3 times higher. Child neglect and abuse 3 to 7 times higher. Intergenerational poverty 4 to 6 times. Almost every study available shows that IQ entering the low 80s, Muslim countries, affects nearly every aspect of life in a negative way. Economic prospects, criminality, mental physical health, happiness metrics, and both at the individual and societal level. In fact, study shows that when a country has a sub-90 IQ average, they find it difficult to have basic innovation. Infrastructure, professional class, and other basic needs of a functional society. Is that sounding familiar yet? Now, here's the thing that's interesting. Modern societies don't require everyone to be a genius. Just look at me. But they do rely on a distribution of abilities, and you can see their roles below. 70 to 85, basic job, practical skills, routine labor. That's Islam. That's almost every Islamic nation, ladies and gentlemen, 70 to 85. Sometimes up to 2 standard deviations lower. Whew. 85 to 100 would be skilled labor administrative support, 100 to 115 professional middle management, 115 to 130 engineer, scientist, doctor, specialized roles, the things they desperately need that they get from us. 130 plus innovation, leadership, high-level problem solving. Next slide, please. Inbreeding itself over generations causes massively compounds that lead to negative consequences. And you can see the risk curve there. You see how the genetic defects increase every single generation. Moving over, I just want to point this out on the last slide. Islam took an ethnic people that were at the heart of being the top of civilization. And through generations of Islam and inbreeding has turned them into the lowest IQ, some of the stupidest people on planet Earth. Literally. You think I'm being mean. I'm not. They're literally some of the stupidest people on planet Earth. Everywhere Islam goes, inbreeding increases and societies become worse. Where Christianity goes, inbreeding decreases, so societies do better in almost every material way. Let's just point out here, as I wrap this up. 1 second. So it's clear here that my argument summarized, though this isn't its entirety, is that Islam creates huge societies with large swaths of people with IQs so collectively low, they would be considered developmentally challenged, borderline retarded here in the West. Not kidding. Due to this side effect, force doctrine becomes the order of the day. Because the technological difference in capabilities of each people group is so vastly different, think Apollo mission compared to Starship Enterprise, Islam must literally bank on the benevolence of Christians to not wipe them off the face of planet Earth. They are basically, the feminists of the East, totally reliant on the goodwill and benevolence of global Christianity, not to just not exterminate them. Okay? And take their resources, always appealing.
It is, I mean, let's be honest. I have been saying that Islam has created the most retarded countries in the world because their children don't sit in front of science books and they sit in front of Qurans. And I think Andrew is simply taking that to the next level. It's not even whether they were put in front of science books or not. If this inbreeding and cousin marriage retardation is this prevalent, then even if you stick those inbred children in front of science books, they'll still not be able to figure it out. They just simply don't have the capability to be able to actually understand these higher complex systems. So, yeah, I guess that's why they don't go to Saudi Arabia for the next generation of software developers. They go to India, and to some extent Iran, but generally, yeah, they go to the Orient, they go to the Far East, they go to Japan and China. And that's the other thing. He says, like, the Muslim world is not being wiped out at the benevolence of the Christian world. That's actually, I mean, it's not just the Christian world. It's also the Hindu world and the Buddhist world. And, well, the Russians are Christian Orthodox as well. So, yeah, no, he's right. The Muslim world has no pieces on the map, on the playfield. Apart from maybe Saudi and UAE, which can only leverage their oil, which, by the way, if Andrew is right about force doctrine, if America wants to force them to simply take their oil, they really can't do anything to stop it. I mean, a lot of people bitch and complain about how the Iraq war was about oil. Nobody stopped it. Nobody could stop it. 1 million people in London protested. Nobody stopped the Iraq war. So he went ahead as scheduled, if that was the aim. So, yeah, the Muslim world doesn't really have any cards to play if the Christian world decides to fully destroy them. The irony here is that the Christian world is on some kind of suicide pact of literally allowing the Muslims to come in and destroy them from within. So the Muslims don't even need to militarily take over. They just simply change the demographics.
To the mightier force for their existence and the benevolence of that very people group who Daniel today is arguing doesn't make better societies, which is a laughable proposition. Even absent the degeneracy of a people group must be able to competently defend itself or bank on the benevolence of the people group, which can. And almost everybody is going to prefer the society that can. Imagine the irony here of arguing against the very Christians you find inadequate morally, yet bank on their moral benevolence to not wipe your low IQ fucking asses off the face of planet Earth. Thank you.
Yeah, these degenerate, immoral people that you have to pray every night not to drop a bomb on you. Although I'm not saying that they're that benevolent. The last 20 years of history shows us they're not as magnanimous as we think. But to be honest with you, I don't even disagree with most of the people that they bombed. I mean, Saddam Hussein, ISIS, the Islamic Republic. Can you really complain about bombing them? Did you shed a tear when Qasem Soleimani was blown to smithereens? I didn't. I know some pathetic Iranian bastards did, because they went down to the Islamic Center in London and had a vigil for that terrorist piece of shit. But I didn't. When Yahya Sinwar took a IDF bullet, I wasn't exactly crying about it.
Thank you very much for that opening as well. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to our friends at Maine First Project for sponsoring DebateCon 6, as they also believe in the values of free speech and fair debate. Please be sure your phones are on silent, and also please.
So this falls exactly into
First with Daniel, the floor is all yours.
So this falls exactly into what I predicted. You argued like a libtard. This falls into exactly what I predicted. You argued like a libtard. How? You're saying that success is on the basis of IQ. Well, how are you going to argue tomorrow when you debate with an atheist that Christian IQ is higher than secular atheist IQ? In fact, the atheist IQ is much higher than Christian IQ. So your entire standard for judging Islam applies just as much to Christianity. And tomorrow when you're debating the atheist, you'll have to concede that your Christian religion is associated or correlated with lower IQ. Therefore, atheism or secularism is better for society because it raises IQ. So that's one point. Point number two, where in the Bible does it restrict cousin marriage? This, as you acknowledged, is a later papal decree. It was not a part of Jesus' teachings. Jesus didn't come out and say, hey, if you want to have a successful society.
In the audience, I do want to ask you to keep it down so we can hear the speaker.
Jesus didn't say, oh, hey, if you want success and you want to have a prosperous society, you shouldn't marry your cousin. Jesus never had this apparently essential Christian teaching that is the key to success on earth. That's your whole argument against Islam, and it's found nowhere in Jesus' teachings. It's found nowhere in the early church fathers' teachings. This is something that came later. And also, when it was decreed that cousin marriage is considered to be incest, it wasn't on the basis of IQ. This is something that you have adopted from who? From atheists, from secularists, from those who are doing secular science to discover these medical problems or IQ levels. So your entire standard for judging Islam is not a Christian standard, it's not a biblical standard, it's not an Orthodox church standard. This is coming only from atheists, from atheistic science. Second of all, if IQ is such end-all be-all, Christian societies, if you bring up a country list of countries by IQ, many Christian countries are on the bottom there. I don't know if you consider them to be true Christians because they're not white, but they're also at 80 IQ, 70 IQ. Look at sub-Saharan Africa, look at Latin America, look at the Philippines. It's also comparable with Muslim countries. Do you consider them to be Christians or not? Also, go back to the Middle Ages. IQ was much lower in the Middle Ages in Christian societies. Why that has changed is because of the Flynn effect. IQ has increased globally across the world because of the Flynn effect. So if you have a problem, again, with lower IQ, look at medieval or Middle Age Christian societies. And also, here's another big problem. IQ is also linked with race. So if you want to prioritize high IQ, you should discourage interbreeding between races. Why should higher average IQ from Asians or whites or Jews or whatever race that has a higher average IQ, Christianity encourages or allows interbreeding between the races. That will result in a lower IQ. So you should be against that because that's going to, over time, lower the average IQ of society. So that should be something that you need to oppose to be consistent. Interracial marriage or interracial breeding should be contrary to your point or contrary to your position. Also, yeah, I mean, I'm just shocked that your entire argument about why Christianity is better than Islam is a cousin marriage argument. That's like shocking because it just works so far against you. So if IQ is the end all be all of what makes a society good, then Christianity loses to atheism and secularism. Like, case closed. So and many Christian societies are low IQ, as in the same way as certain Muslim countries. The thing about the difference between me and you is my values are based on marriage, family, traditional values of that nature, not atheistic values of IQ and intelligence.
We're going to jump into Andrew's rebuttal as well. The timer is set for you. 5 minutes, Andrew.
Libtard value. Don't fuck your first cousin.
I mean, let's be honest. If not having sex with your first cousin is a libtard value, then that's a value I'm going to take. I'm going to take that to the bank. Yes, call me. I'm going to get a septum ring. I'm going to dye my already non-existent hair pink. And I'm going to encourage no having sex with your first cousin. That's if that's libtardism, sign me up.
Libtard. Let me just point out that Daniel Haqiqatjou didn't actually rebut any of my arguments, not a single one. My argument was simple, and I'll repeat it here again. The argument is that your society has to rely on the benevolence of mind to exist because of your general IQ. You see, remember how I told you the 70 to 85 is basic jobs, practical skills, routine labor? That's most Muslim societies, sir. Doesn't matter if you point out two exceptions to the rule. Even in those societies in which Christians have a lower IQ, guess what you find? Their interbreeding rates are going down, and when you compare them to the same Arab population where they are inbreeding, that section of the population, the IQ is always lower. So what's my argument here? My argument is that Christian societies are better because they lower inbreeding, which collectively takes your IQ so far down the rabbit trail that you end up having to beg the higher IQ individuals for protection from them. You have to bank on their benevolence. Imagine this guy is banking on the benevolence of Christians who have a high enough IQ to basically eradicate all of the Middle East. There's nothing they can do about it. And they're banking on that benevolence while telling you all that you're immoral. You're immoral. This is not an atheist argument. Far away. Well, the argument here is based around what it is that we're discussing. And what are we discussing? Which makes for better societies? Right? Christianity or Islam? How can you claim you have better societies, sir, when half of your societies are so inbred, their IQs are like borderline retarded? How? How could this possibly be of benefit? And you know what they do when they go to other countries? They keep doing it. They keep doing it. Now he says, well, if you value IQ more than all other values, who said anything about that? The debate is not about that. It's about which makes for better societies. Now, which society would you rather live in? Would you rather live in a society of donkey pull cart? Right? Donkey pull cart, because we're not smart enough to make car. We're not smart enough to even have infrastructure because we're at 70 IQ, 80 IQ, borderline retarded individuals. That's a society. Who's moving there? Who's moving? Nobody. They're all moving here. Why? Because they want the societies that Christians have. By the way, let me point a couple other things out. No, Christians are not stupid. Yes, their IQs are much higher, much higher. Even in non-white areas, they're much higher, sir, because they don't inbreed. And it's very frowned upon. Go figure. And interestingly enough, let me just point this out, that Christians have a much smarter enemy. You're right, they do have a high IQ. You need high IQ people to combat that with these values. Islam can make no inroads. They don't have the technology. They can't mount an invasion. They can't even make a fucking power plant, right? How are they going to do that? Daniel, what's your big plan? His big plan is to bank on the fact that there's enough suicidal empathy in the West to keep on importing Muslims. That's about it. That's it. That could be.
Exactly. There it is. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm not refuting Andrew's debate about high IQ, but these supposed high IQ societies seem to be hell-bent on suicidal empathy. I don't know if that's, I think that is personally a byproduct of liberalism, but that is insane. That is insane. That is insanity to me. If high IQ equals this level of suicidal empathy, then that in itself is detrimental to your society, because you will invite the low IQ savages to dominate your country through simple birth rates, and that will destroy you anyway. So who you're really, saving here? And the irony is that these high IQ societies will hand over the weapons of mass destruction that they've created to keep themselves safe from the savages to the very savages. And then those savages will end everyone because they're idiots and they don't know how to handle power because they don't have the IQ to actually comprehend the destructiveness of these weapons. So yeah, we're screwed, man. We are screwed. Let me just read this chat from Ollie. By the way, big up to yourself, Ollie. Big up to yourself, Dwayne. And Urban Roots, both of you, all of you. Lieutenant as well. Love you, Lieutenant. There's a moment where Pikachu says, oh, yes. We're going to get to that. Ollie, hold on. Ollie's seen this before. He's becoming a bit of a Nostradamus on this one.
His only plan. These people can't make armies. That requires massive organization and mobilization. You think that these people could ever attack the West? That's a laughable prospect. He started with Zionism. He has 10 million Jews in his backyard. They can't do shit about it. Nothing. 1 billion versus 10 million. They can't do anything. They launched their entire missile payload. It does nothing because of the IQ difference in these regions.
Oh, that burns the Muslim ass. I know it does. I know it does. Muslims despise. You see, this is something Sam Harris actually said in his book, The End of Faith. Christ, like over 10 years ago now, he wrote that book. He said Muslims are obsessed with the superiority of their religion, but frustrated or dumbfounded with the inferior position they find themselves in the world. This is the Muslim dilemma. This is the Muslim paradox, is they have to sit and reconcile. If we have the truth, if we have the perfect religion, as Muslims always say, Islam is perfect, Muslims are imperfect. If we have the perfect religion, why are we not the perfect people? Why are we not the dominant people on this planet? They were for a while when there were savages going around killing and raping and pillaging, but that's when they had the upper hand in warfare. They don't have that anymore because they bred themselves into stupidity. They bred themselves into a weak position, and they can't even acknowledge it. They can't even acknowledge the problem to start fixing it. They bred themselves into the dumb house, and now they are bamboozled as to why their countries are the poorest and the most retarded nations on the planet, when they have some of the most richest natural resources on the planet. So what do they do? They make up conspiracies of CIA and it's the West that's just keeping us poor. The West destroyed Japan. They managed to build themselves back up. They destroyed and totally decimated Germany. They seem to again build themselves back up. What level of destruction have you faced that is worse than Japan's Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Dresden in Germany? What level of destruction from the West have you faced that is so bad that you are unable to achieve what they have? That's a question that Muslims have to ask themselves. Big up, Last Dance. Good evening. Salute to you, sir. Let's keep going.
The IQ difference is high IQ people to combat that.
Yeah.
You're immoral. This is not an atheist argument. Far away. Well, the argument here is based around what it is that we're discussing. And what are we discussing? Which makes for better societies, right? Christianity or Islam? How can you claim you have better societies, sir, when half of your societies are so inbred, their IQs are like borderline retarded? How? How could this possibly be of benefit? And you know what they do when they go to other countries? They keep doing it. They keep doing it. Now he says, well, if you value IQ more than all other values, who said anything about that? The debate is not about that. It's about which makes for better societies. Now, which society would you rather live in? Would you rather live in a society of donkey pull cart, right? Donkey pull cart, because we're not smart enough to make car. We're not smart enough to even have infrastructure because we're at 70 IQ, 80 IQ, borderline retarded individuals. That's a society. Who's moving there? Who's moving? Nobody. They're all moving here. Why? Because they want the societies that Christians have. By the way, let me point a couple other things out. No, Christians are not stupid. Yes, their IQs are much higher, much, much higher. Even in non-white areas, they're much higher, sir, because they don't inbreed. And it's very frowned upon. Go figure. And interestingly enough, let me just point this out, that Christians have a much smarter enemy. Much smarter enemy. You're right, they do have a high IQ. You need high IQ people to combat that with these values. Islam can make no inroads. They don't have the technology. They can't mount an invasion. They can't even make a fucking power plant, right? How are they going to do that? Daniel, what's your big plan? His big plan is to bank on the fact that there's enough suicidal empathy in the West to keep on importing Muslims. That's about it. That's it. That could be his only plan. These people can't make armies. That requires massive organization and mobilization. You think that these people could ever attack the West? That's a laughable prospect. He started with Zionism. He has 10 million Jews in his backyard. They can't do shit about it. Nothing. 1 billion versus 10 million. They can't do anything. They launched their entire missile payload. It does nothing because of the IQ difference in these regions. The IQ difference is so wide that if they even tried to collectivize, it would still be done, and they know it. And they can't collectivize anyway because it requires a high enough IQ to follow orders. Okay? So that's my argument. My argument.
You know, I think this is the argument that this is the quiet secret that no one ever mentioned about why after 20 years of American domination and essentially, occupation of Afghanistan, they couldn't stop the Taliban from taking over. They couldn't get the Afghanis to mobilize their own army to fight the Taliban and take down the Taliban. they simply couldn't get, because there's documentaries about this, Vice documentaries, why the Afghan soldiers they were good fighters. They were saying these guys are hardened fighters, but they can't follow our orders. They can't, they have no discipline. They are extremely bad at trying to get them to teach, to learn these things that we need them to know, how to handle the weaponries, the tactics, the maneuvers. They just can't seem to follow these orders. And I think, Andrew's kind of right. He's like, these people, it's not that they're not educated, they're not able to, all they need is education. I think they're borderline retarded. So much inbreeding, they can't learn these things. It's not that they're unable to, they're unwilling. They're unable to learn how to fight in an American army. These guys would not make it in an American army. And that's why they essentially, once the Americans pulled out, the Taliban just rolled in and took over. They're morons. They're inbred morons. I'm sorry.
Basically, it's very simple. You have to have a high enough IQ to have a society to begin with. Christians make it by lowering everywhere they go. You fucking your family members. My God. Back to you, Daniel.
With that, we have 60 minutes of open dialogue, though the open dialogue is broken into 90-second segments, just to be sure there's no interruptions. Daniel, we're ready for you for your first 90 seconds.
Sure. So he said that I didn't address his argument that Muslims rely on Christian benevolence because Christians have such high IQ that they could just technologically eliminate Muslims whenever they wanted. Well, Christians are at the mercy of atheists. Christians are at the mercy of higher IQ atheists. Christians are at the mercy of higher IQ Ashkenazi Jews. Christians are at the mercy of China and Asia. If you want to make a might makes right argument, then we're in the same boat, buddy. Muslims and Christians are closer together in the same boat compared to these other groups. So this is a self-defeating argument. Also, AI. AI is going to eliminate this so-called advantage of IQ. AI is making it irrelevant. I don't know why you're laughing. AI is going to eliminate a biological IQ difference between different races, between different...
Well, no, because AI is only going to be utilized in those high IQ societies. Low IQ societies won't even know how to use IQ to advance themselves, to build apps, to build products that utilizes AI in order to generate or help their society move forward. You guys, the Muslim world is not even remotely at the forefront of AI. They're not anywhere near the level of the Western countries. So no, AI is not going to be the equalizer for you. You're sorely mistaken if you think AI is going to come and save the retards of the Middle East.
Higher IQ atheists. Christians are at the mercy of higher IQ Ashkenazi Jews. Christians are at the mercy of China and Asia. If you want to make a might makes right argument, then we're in the same boat, buddy. Muslims and Christians are closer together in the same boat compared to these other groups. So this is a self-defeating argument. Also, AI. AI is going to eliminate this so-called advantage of IQ. AI is making it irrelevant. I don't know why you're laughing. AI is going to eliminate a biological IQ difference between different races, between different religions, between different countries.
Andrew's laughing so hard, he's actually literally red. He has become literally red. And I think it is very hot in that place that they're in as well, because Haqiqatjou was profusely sweating as well.
That's a big problem for this kind of IQ argument. You're talking about people moving to the higher IQ West. Well, you have Christians from Latin America migrating en masse in the millions, 10 million over the past 5 years, coming into the United States. They're coming from Christian countries to the US. So you think that they're coming because it's a Christian country, or is it because of economic opportunity? And many people actually prefer to live in these countries. You have people in the US being passport pros and living in South America because they're tired of this shithole United States, unfortunately, what it's become, despite the high IQ.
90 seconds.
Why is that, Andrew? Explain it.
But they're not marrying their cousins. Even if the Christians from South America come to North America, they're still not going to follow Islamic traditions of banging their first cousins. Their IQ levels will still be higher by birth rate than the Muslim population. You are shagging yourself into stupidity, is what he's saying. even though you're giving birth at a larger rate than the Christians, or even Westerners in general, but you are literally birthing yourself into moronic ignorance. So you're not going to pull yourself out of this hole until you stop inbreeding, first cousin marriages. You can't. I mean, we literally, this argument is being addressed on the ground in this country. The British Parliament tried to pass a law to make first marriage cousins an illegal thing, and there were Muslim parliamentarians, MPs, arguing that we shouldn't. Muslim Pakistanis in the Houses of Commons saying, no, we like first cousin marriages. It unites the family. They are making Britain more stupid as well because of their practices, unless the British secular Christians stop these idiots. They have to force their hand, because they're just going to lower our IQ as well.
Switch over to Andrew. I want to remind you folks, please do self-regulate so that we don't have difficulty hearing the speaker. With that, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can make that argument. There are some high IQ Christian nations that move to even higher IQ Christian nations, but none of them move to Muslim nations. You're not getting anybody to move over there, Daniel, because you don't have civilizations. You can't create civilizations. He says AI is going to come along and solve it all. You got to be smart enough to use the AI, Daniel. You have to be smart enough to use the AI. Remember, 70 to 85, that's your societies, 70 to 85. Basic jobs, practical skill, routine labor. Doesn't sound like a bunch of automation, robot building, AI savvy individuals to me, Daniel. He points out the ideas of IQ. Remember, we have to have a basic minimum for civilization, about 98 to 100 to 115. They don't have it. That's a distinction in our civilizations. And it's because of one value. Christians outlaw screwing your own family members. That's it, simple. They outlaw.
Yeah, you see, where Andrew's argument falls short a little bit, I think, is he's not accounting for the Asian nations, Southeast Asian nations, the Japanese, the South Koreans, the Chinese. They don't have a Christian society per se, although you could argue that Western influences and Christian-based Western influences heavily influenced Japan after the Second World War and South Korea. But they weren't inbreeding before this either. So the Chinese are not inbreeding. The Japanese, the Vietnamese, although Vietnamese and you could say Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, these are still impoverished nations, but they don't have a concept of inbreeding, at least not religiously. So I'm not sure why they're not as well developed. Is it because of war? Is it because of something else? But yeah, I think he does. That's why he doesn't, if you notice, address the Southeast Asian nations. He doesn't really address the Chinese, the Japanese, and the rest, and how they managed to become such high IQ. In fact, in all known tests, they have the higher IQs than the Western whites. Apart from the Ashkenazi or the Jewish communities, they come up sort of second, I think, to the Orient, to the Japanese and the Chinese. I don't know actually. I think there's like the Jews are either on par or actually one tier down from the Southeast Asians. But nevertheless, the Southeast Asians don't have Christianity as a dominant force in their society. So how is it that they're still doing well in their IQ rates? Admittedly, Buddhism doesn't teach first cousin marriages. So that's still a thing.
It's no good. And even in places where it's legal, we must be adhering to the ecclesiology here, Daniel, because where it's legal, people still ain't banging their cousins. That's your societies, the ones that you build. And what you have built is a collective of some of the dumbest people on planet Earth who are at the mercy of Christians. And don't try to cope and say, no, they're at the mercy of the atheists. Give me a break. Everybody is at the mercy right now of Western nations and Western Christians, which are in them. And that includes Eastern Europe, by the way. So this is all cope. He hasn't refuted any of the arguments. How can he possibly say these low IQ societies, which Islam creates, are better than the ones Christians do on this one principle? I want to hear it.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so you don't need to know how AI works to be able to operate it. That's why it's a evening of the playing field. I don't know if anyone here has used AI, but you don't actually need to know how to program AI to be able to use it. This is something that is very obvious, how AI is going to make IQ differences.
God, this guy is such a moron. It's unbelievable, the level. I mean, I'll be honest, he's Iranian. He may also be inbred. I'll be very shocked if his family hasn't had a few first cousin marriages. But this idiot doesn't realize you have to be able to prompt AI to create the products that you then don't need to program or use AI to use those products. So if I were to make, let's say, an app for fitness, I need to prompt AI to create that app for me. So I still need a certain level of IQ and programming skills to be able to prompt the AI to then be able to program that app for me. But the people who use the app for the gym, they don't need to have a high IQ. They can just go to the gym and use my fitness app to get fit. They could have an IQ of 60, 80, I don't know. Low IQ, but they can use my app because my app is easier to use than the level of IQ it took to create the app. Moron.
Is really irrelevant in the future, and this is what all of the futurists are saying. Second of all, you have Christians in more religious Christian countries going to less religious Christian countries. You have, again, the sub-Saharan Africans, you have the Latin Americans who are Christian going into more secularized nations. So this is, again, an argument for secularism, not for Christianity. You say that there are no Christians moving to Muslim countries. What about all the Christians in Africa, in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia that go to Dubai, that go to the UAE, that go to Saudi? That is a counterexample to your really...
No. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, these are not the product of Arabs. These are products of America. They made these cities and places for them because of the money that their oil provides. They did not build these cities. The Arabs did not architect these cities. They did not build these things. They didn't build a single refinery. To this very day, Saudi Arabia and the Emirate nations haven't managed to architect and build one refinery from scratch for themselves. They still haven't managed that because they can't do it. It's the Americans that did it for them and built all of these things for them. It's Western Europeans that were the architects of the Burj Khalifa and all these other skyscrapers. None of them have Arab skyscraper architects, if you notice.
Bizarre claim. You also, again, look at what makes a society great. I think that's the overarching point that is so hard to believe that a Christian would make this argument. I value marriage. I value children. I value having big families. I value belief in God. I believe church attendance or like religious attendance to places of worship. These are the things I find valuable, and I showed you how within Muslim countries, all of these things are higher, despite having a lower IQ, which I'll grant you. Do you say over or 10 seconds?
No, you're good. That was 90 seconds. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so this is really funny. Imagine the irony of saying this. Well, Christians are moving to more secular countries. So are Muslims. What are you talking about? The mass migration. No one's bitching about the mass migration of the Christians right now, are they, to Christian nations? They're bitching about it the other way around. Really interesting, too. He still hasn't refuted the argument. Notice he does everything we get in the. He says, we really value marriage to our first cousins. To our first cousins, we think it's great. It's fantastic. We really value it. It's like, no, that's not a value of mine, sir. And I don't think that that's secular to say. It's not a value of Christians to not want to have sex with their family members. And by the way, can you please explain, even though I've asked you many times, how it could be possible, sir, that you create better societies than Christians where everywhere Christians go based on their ecclesiology, their ecclesiastic authority, and the fact that they're Christians, inbreeding goes down, making sure that the IQ at least sits somewhere around can function. Can you please, for the love of all that is good, I don't even care if you Google it at this point, just contend with the argument. How are you making a better society with inbreeding and your Muslim values, which over 1,400 years have produced the dumbest societies on planet Earth?
Wait, let me ask the audience a question here. Oh, sorry. Let me ask the audience a question. Are there electric cars being developed in Latin America? Are there new AI technologies being developed in Brazil and Argentina? Are they being developed in sub-Saharan Africa, these Christian countries? Because they don't have cousin marriage, do they, Andrew? So why aren't they developing all of these technologies, these amazing technologies, AI, nuclear weapons, fighter jets? I didn't see Brazil or Honduras producing any fighter jets, Andrew. Is it because they don't have cousin marriage? Why? They should be having this brain-blasting IQ in all these Christian countries. Why is that not the case? If Christianity is the secret sauce, Andrew, then tell me why these countries don't have those technologies. Explain it. Because the reason, I'll give you a spoiler alert, because it's not Christianity. It's not Christianity and cousin marriage that causes this discrepancy. And if you're so high IQ in the United States, how are you not able to figure out birth rate, fertility rate? Why are these countries going extinct? Why is Europe going extinct? Why is Christianity, these Christian countries in Europe the population is on a nosedive despite the high IQ? They can't even figure out how to reproduce at replacement levels. Gee, I guess IQ leads to extinction because it's correlated, right? The higher IQ you have, the lower the fertility rate. So it seems like the more Christianity you have, the more chances you have of going extinct, Andrew. Explain that for us.
Well, if that were the case, you're in big trouble. Because if it's the case that your IQ stays the same and then collectively secularist IQ goes up, what's to stop them from wiping all of you out and you can't do anything about it? Your argument, unfortunately, destroys you. When you say, well, wait a second, what about these South American nations, right? Yes, they're way more advanced than your nations. Way more. Not even in the same universe more advanced than your nations. Yes. The truth of the matter is that the reason Islam creates worse societies. We can bicker about theology, right? Hey, I'm sure Daniel could probably get me on some points there, but you can't bicker on the facts. And he hasn't contended with the argument still. He's asked me a bunch of questions. Did you actually hear an argument, anybody? Because there isn't an argument. The reason Islam makes worse societies is because they have a doctrine for cousin marriage. Now, notice Daniel didn't say, no, you can't fuck your first cousin and marry her. No. He didn't say that. Because he probably believes that you should. He probably believes it's fine. He probably believes something about like it protects inheritance or something like this, right? The thing is, though, is like, can we please get an argument for how a society that doesn't at least have 100 IQ so we can have middle management isn't better than, well, donkey pull cart? That's what I want to know. And please, for the love of God, sir, when you say it's not because of Christianity, the entire historical record disagrees with you. When pagans were at 20 to 30%, guess what? It was Christians who brought that down. And by the way, in all of the Muslim shared nations with Christians and Muslims, they're always lower IQ than the Christians because they fought their cousins.
And time. We'll go over to Daniel, 90 seconds as well.
Again, throughout Christian history, you had sub 100 IQ. Throughout Christian history. It's only because of the Flynn effect in recent centuries that you have this change. So all of the criticisms that you're applying to Islam apply to your past civilization. How did you have a Christian civilization with sub 100 IQ, Andrew? Was the Byzantine Empire a S-hole? They had sub 100 IQ. How did they have a civilization without having positive 100 IQ? You can't explain that. You can have a beautiful, expansive civilization and empire with sub 100 IQ because there's other values that are significant to human existence. Values like marriage, family, God, worshiping God. You don't need to be a positive 100 IQ genius to be able to love and be devoted to God. I think that is actually more of the Christian message than this kind of IQ chauvinism that you're presenting. This doesn't seem Christian at all. This really doesn't seem Christian. You keep talking about like donkeys pulling carts. Go to the Philippines, bro. They're Christians. Go to the Philippines, go to some of these African countries, go to Botswana, Christian country, they have donkeys pulling. So apparently their Christianity and their lack of cousin marriage is not helping them. So this is a really bizarre argument, and all of you can laugh and chuckle it and laugh it up, but it doesn't change how stupid this argument is. If IQ is this end-all be-all of civilization and the end-all be-all of progress, then why is the West going in a nosedive? All the things, Andrew, that you brilliantly, beautifully criticize about the West, the LGBTQ, the lack of marriage, that's happening in these non-cousin marriage countries. So clearly, having the highest IQ, so clearly IQ is not the end-all be-all.
Switch it over.
Let's take a look at the first straw man. Did I ever say IQ is the end-all be-all? No, of course not. Straw man still hasn't told us how Muslims build better civilizations when they produce 70 to 85 IQ individuals who are basically only suited for basic jobs. Okay, he still hasn't told us that. He can't tell you. He can't tell you that these are better civilizations. The reason that he can't is because they're not. They're clearly not. And the thing that's really funny about this is, like, let's just grant it. Let's just grant that, just for a second, we'll just grant Daniel's argument. We'll just pretend, well, you know, it's okay to have a bunch of 80 IQ people who can't seem to get past primitive technology and are just day laborers. But you know what? We don't do anything degenerate. Fucking your cousin's degenerate, Daniel. That's degenerate. Yeah, maybe they don't have hookers and OnlyFans girls, but fucking your first cousin is degenerate. So by the way, and let me just point this out, and this is really, really important to point out, he has not made an argument about how they produce a better civilization. Only I have. My argument is simple and still stands unopposed. Where Christianity goes, incest decreases based on canon law. Where Islam goes, incest increases based on their canon law. Therefore, where Christians go, society gets better. Where Islam goes, it gets worse. An argument would sure be swell.
All right, 90 seconds. We'll switch it to Daniel.
No, I gave a argument that you failed to respond to. I said that Islam, when we look at the statistics, when we look at all these countries on these metrics of marriage, birth rate, household size, belief in God, conviction in God, I thought we were believers. Conviction in God is higher in Muslim countries. Holding on to your religious practice is more in Muslim countries. Look at the levels of drug abuse, alcohol abuse being lower in Muslim countries. These are all values that are good, and we see them associated with Islam, not Christianity. That was my argument. So you can't deny those statistics, so you keep claiming that I have no argument. I clearly do have an argument, and I refuted your argument. If IQ is the end-all be-all, your entire argument is on the basis of IQ. You haven't said, you just say, marrying your cousin, effing your cousin, that is degenerate. On the basis of what? It's not on the basis of your Bible. It's just a degree. Yeah, laugh it up. I
do want to make sure we can hear the speaker.
Laugh it up, okay? Because as I said, you are arguing on the basis of a decree that was made. What is the actual moral? Can you make a moral argument, Andrew? Other than, it lowers IQ? There are many things that lower IQ. Like I said, interbreeding with other races, interracial marriage results in lower IQ. So is that degenerate as well? Why can't you answer these questions, Andrew, instead of repeating, you don't have an argument. You haven't responded to my argument. Okay, yeah, you've said that 10 times. Respond to the points that I'm making.
Well, I don't. Here's the thing that's funny, right? The points that you're making are in question form. Question form is not an argument. They're questions, not arguments. Perhaps you should go to a higher IQ school. The point is, here, and this is super important to point out, I have what's called an argument, which means I made an argument. That argument needs to be refuted. Now, I would be happy to sit here and answer all of your questions today, Daniel, but you requested specifically a forum where that's not the case, where instead we do 2-minute monologues, probably because I would tear you to pieces in a Socratic method, but I would have been happy to do that too. People always misjudge. They always seem to think, well, Andrew just steamrolls debates, and he's terrible at these long-form formal debates. It's where I fucking thrive. And let me just point this out. Has anybody heard an argument yet? He just says, well, there's better families and stuff. It's like, okay, but you need to give us a standard, an argument standard for why it would be that these have better societies than societies which can have, skilled labor and middle management at the very least. That's all I'm asking for. I'll concede. Hey, we've got some problems. We've got the OF, we've got the prostitution, we've got some pretty horrible things going on over here. And we have high IQ enemies that require high IQ enemies, right? And they're not getting it from Islam. So my question just is this again. It's very simple. How do you make societies that can even combat this to begin with when you basically live in the Stone Age in comparison with technological distinction? You live in the Stone Age. Islam will get AI? We already got AI. What are you talking about? So I just want an argument. That's it. I want to hear an argument for why Islamic nations are better than Christian nations based on the fact that they go, and everywhere they go, they increase cousin fucking and we don't, which lowers the collective IQ. I would actually like a refutation there at some point.
Okay, here is the argument. I'll put it in premise form so you can follow it. So take notes, Andrew. Premise 1. Okay, societies that encourage marriage or religions that encourage more, better marriages, higher quality marriages, less being sluts, okay, less prostitution, societies that have bigger and more healthy families, societies that have more devotion to God, religions that encourage societies that are more cohesive, are standing for each other in a kind of nationalistic or communal way. That religion that encourages more of that is going to be better, is going to be a better religion. Premise 2, Islam does encourage all of those things I've mentioned, and the stats I presented, that's premise 2. Therefore, conclusion, by deductive inference, Islam is a better religion than Christianity. That is the argument. The problem with your argument is that you say premise 1, societies that have higher IQ are going to be better. Premise 2, Christianity, because it bans cousin marriage, is going to lead to societies with higher IQ. Therefore, Christianity is better. My rebuttal of this dumb argument is that premise 1 is wrong. Premise 1 is a false premise. That higher IQ does not lead to better societies. And as proof.
But that's literally the reality. Christian countries are objectively better societies than Muslim ones. I mean, as I said, you can go ahead and pretend that Dubai and Saudi Arabia now are advanced societies, but that's not because of Islam. That's literally because of Western countries who built them up. But they didn't do it to themselves. But other than those few exceptions, everywhere else where Islam dominates is a terrible place to live. And no one wants to be there.
I pointed to the United States of America. I pointed to many Christian countries that have low IQ, and you haven't denounced those countries. I gave many reasons why your premise 1 is false. That is my rebuttal of your argument. Get it?
Yeah. Let's go through this premise at a time. First and foremost, the entailment of your argument would be that low IQ societies are better. It would be that lower IQ societies are actually better, Daniel, which is hilarious because remember, you rejected that as being a false premise. P1, he says,
Oh, he baited him. He baited him, and yes, I've seen this. Oh, he baited him so well. Andrew, I got to give Andrew, he's a sneaky mother sucker.
societies require higher quality marriages. They fuck their first cousins. How could that possibly be a higher quality marriage, Daniel? I reject premise 1. I'm saying your argument's not even sound. How can you have in any way, shape, or it's totally invalid. I reject it as even being a sound premise. How could this qualitatively be better to have genetic deficiencies compounded over 1,000 years to the point where your civilization literally requires the benevolence of all other civilizations so that they just don't wipe you out because you're not technologically advanced to do anything about it. You're not technologically advanced. And by the way, when I say technology, I'm not just talking about like lasers and phasers and guns and things like that. Remember, things like philosophy, that's a technology, right? Things like language is technology. Things like social communications and businesses and infrastructure, these are technologies. You can't have these technologies when your IQ is 70 to 85. You can't. You need to have the administrative and skilled labor class, and that requires at least 85 to 100. Most of these places don't have it, but 100 to 115, that's pretty standard for these things. So it's like, look, how could you possibly say that the societies Christians build aren't better on a single principle, that we outlaw first cousin marriage? When you outlaw first cousin marriage, you see the collective IQ begin to increase, right? And you see that these technologies are no longer unavailable. Technologies, medicines for children, things like this are now available. His argument, his entire argument is actually we should keep our society super low IQ because if we keep them low IQ, well, they'll have more qualitative marriages and stuff. What? What?
We have to switch it over at 90 seconds. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, I didn't say having lower IQ means you'll have more marriage. You don't understand causality. So again, the question is, you had the vast majority of Christian history at sub 100 IQ. Your assumption, the premise that you're using is that you have to have a over 100 IQ average in your society to build civilization and to be functional. But this is disproven by your own religious history. This is disproven by all of Christendom prior to 1800 or even 1900, the 1900s actually. So just like Christians could have civilization for 1900 years, Muslims have also had their civilizations that were also thriving, that also had conquest, that also had arts, literature, poetry, all kinds of beautiful things that we as human beings value. It's not just IQ. You're taking this atheistic argument, which is baffling to me. Why you as a Christian would have this kind of IQ fetishism? You're not a white nationalist. IQ is not the end-all, be-all of human existence. I am happy, I'm fine with having a 90 average IQ country that abides by traditional values, that abides by whether they be Christian or Muslim. I actually prefer the low IQ Christian countries that value marriage. They don't have degeneracy. They don't have prostitution. I value those Christian countries even when...
There you go. That's the one. He baited him, and boy, did he bid hard on that. Look at Andrew's face. Andrew was loving it. It's like this moron just advocated for a low IQ, dumbed down society because they're going to be better sheep to follow Islam. They're going to be better sheep to follow, I guess, someone like Haqiqatjou, who considers himself like a sheikh or a mullah kind of position. Yeah, it's true. These mullahs, they do prefer dumb morons to just follow them and do whatever the hell they say, because they're just easily malleable, and they can use the religion to just get them to do and say whatever the hell they want.
And they have a lower IQ, a 9 Islam. I actually prefer the low IQ Christian countries that value marriage. They don't have degeneracy. They don't have prostitution. I value those Christian countries even when they have a lower IQ, a 90 IQ, an 80 IQ. They're living beautiful lives. Yeah, you can make fun of them. Oh, they have donkeys pulling their carts. You can laugh, but they're living beautiful lives as Christians or as Muslims or any other religious group.
Well, I guess ignorance really is bliss.
Oh, good one. That was a neat
slapping your dress. So look, let's point this out.
Slapping your dress. God damn, Andrew.
Let's point this out.
all right,
Let's point this out, right? We just want to look. We haven't gotten personal with each other. We go the rest of the debate. We both got a jab in. All right, that's fair. So here's the thing, though, right? This is still not a refutation of my argument. The historical standard is Christians had lower IQs back in the day. Yeah, and they didn't build modern civilization back in the day. Modern civilization requires professional middle management, 100 to 115 IQ, right? 85 to 100 for skilled labor. What they're talking about is just basic day laborers. These people are very low IQ. And by the way, I can even make the claim that they're really choosing Islam anyway. They can't really think about it that hard, right? So the question becomes, right, as we're kind of diving into this, I just want to point out one more time, the argument is around a singular Christian principle. The singular Christian principle is that we're not allowed to marry our first cousins. That's in our ecclesiology. And I don't care if you're a Protestant, right? Almost no Protestants do this, right? No Catholics do this. Orthodox, this is forbidden as well. It's not that you couldn't find some sect somewhere, some small society somewhere which practices it. I'm sure that that's the case, but by and large and overwhelmingly it's not. With Islam, the opposite's true. By and large and overwhelmingly they do. So we're basing this on a singular principle, which is Christian, and that's what I want a refutation for. Why is marrying your first cousin for the purpose of building low IQ societies better than not doing that?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Again, it's not a causal relation. Islam doesn't mandate marrying your cousin. It's not like we're saying we want to keep IQ low, so marry your cousin. You keep getting the causal chain wrong about this. The second point that I want you to address is that when we look at IQ increasing, that is associated with more atheism. It is directly correlated with higher levels of atheism. The higher the IQ goes, the more people become atheists. This is a bad thing. I would assume that Christians would agree more atheism is a bad
This is a bad thing because as your society becomes smarter, some people might call out the bullshit in that religion, and they might suspect that there's something wrong and walk away. But that's a bad thing because, well, what happens? No more zakat, no more jizya, no more people praying in the mosque. God forbid. Can't have that. Let's dumb these bastards down. So they just keep coming. They keep smacking their chests during Ashura. They starve themselves during Ramadan. We can't have these people having higher IQs. What's wrong with you?
bad thing. I think that, yes, modern society is not all it's cracked up to be. I don't know if you guys have been looking around, but it seemed like I felt, at least myself, that over the past 5 years especially, first with the pandemic and now everything that's happening in the world where World War III is about to break out, I think the modern world is a dystopia. I am waiting for, nuclear holocaust to destroy us all. I don't believe in this absolute value of modern society, and therefore I don't agree with your premise that high IQ is something valuable in and of itself. There are many things to point out being wrong or bad with high IQ. Again, I prefer to turn the clock back 200 years, where Christians had these traditional Christian societies, Muslims had traditional Muslim societies. Yeah.
You see, this is exactly why countries like Iran after the 1979 revolution, look at Iran, pre-70, post-80. See the difference. Same with Afghanistan. Everywhere where they become Islamic, he literally said it. He prefers to roll back the clock. They literally go back in time. They become pre-civilization, pre-modernity societies. They literally go back in time. And he wants that. Assholes like him revel in that shit. Oh no, let's take us back to the 7th century. Because that's what Islam does. Islam takes you back in time and makes you a 7th century warlord medieval society. Let me just rewind that a little bit. They're literally just telling you the quiet part out loud now. I mean, someone like Haqiqatjou, this is why people are like, oh, Haqiqatjou is a bit stupid, weird. No, I love him. I love Daniel Haqiqatjou. He tells the woken Westerners the quiet part of Islam out loud. They want to take your society back 200 years. That's what they will do if they dominate your society. You'll go back 300 years. You'll go back 1,400 years, actually.
Islam doesn't mandate marrying your cousin. It's not like we're saying we want to keep IQ low, so marry your cousin. You keep getting the causal chain wrong about this. The second point that I want you to address is that when we look at IQ increasing, that is associated with more atheism. It is directly correlated with higher levels of atheism. The higher the IQ goes, the more people become atheists. This is a bad thing. I would assume that Christians would agree more atheism is a bad thing. I think that, yes, modern society is not all it's cracked up to be. I don't know if you guys have been looking around, but it seemed like I've felt, at least myself, that over the past 5 years especially, first with the pandemic and now everything that's happening in the world where...
Even though he hates modern society, he's not leaving. He's not leaving United States for Iran. You don't see him packing up and leaving for Sudan, for Yemen, for Oman. No. He's firmly planted in the United States with all the terrible things that he sees.
World War III is about to break out. I think the modern world is a dystopia. I am waiting for, nuclear holocaust to destroy us all. I don't believe in this absolute value of modern society, and therefore I don't agree with your premise that high IQ is something valuable in and of itself. There are many things to point out being wrong or bad with high IQ. Again, I prefer to turn the clock back 200 years, where Christians had these traditional Christian societies. Muslims had traditional Muslim societies. Yeah, you didn't have a laptop, you didn't have internet, you didn't have cars, but guess what? You didn't have to worry about your wife having to, being in college and sleeping with every frat boy in the university, and you don't even know her history because of feminism. You have like LGBT degeneracy. You have elderly who are being shipped off to old folks' homes because there's not a strong family unit to take care of our own elderly. Children are being shipped off to daycares because there's not a strong family, strong marriage, mom at home with traditional roles to take care of the children. I prefer the low IQ. I prefer the low technology society.
We have to switch it over. Andrew.
There you go. Donkey pulls cart. He wants to live in donkey pulled cart. The messed up thing is, Daniel, you can buy a ticket today and go to Kabul, Afghanistan, and live that life. But you don't seem to be packing any bags. It's not like that kind of life doesn't exist. That kind of society doesn't exist. It absolutely exists right now. It's in Kabul. You can find it in Iran. I mean, Tehran is a little bit more scientifically advanced, but you go to some villages, you'll find donkey pull cart, no problem. Plenty of goat bangers over there. You can run a harem of goats in any village in Iran. Plenty of them in Afghanistan, of course, and even Pakistan. You can find plenty in Pakistan, but you're not packing any bags, I notice. I notice your feet are very well planted in the United States, and you intend to stick around for many more years to come.
90 seconds.
Can I just point this out? That none of those degenerate things that he just pointed out, which I agree with him, are the cause of IQ. I think you're having the problem with the causal link, sir. Let's point this out. And this is really important to point out. One more time, he didn't condemn the argument. The argument is, how do you make a superior society which is better for society? And you know what? All you've done right now is just argue this. Literally, I'm Daniel Haqiqatjou, and I prefer a low IQ society. That's his argument.
Yeah, he knows he made a meme out of himself. I mean, that's a meme right there. He just memed himself. Daniel's gonna be memed up on Twitter like unbelievable. Well, X. He's just memed himself, moron.
Now, look, I did not expect you to bite the bullet that you would have a preference for his argument. Now, look, I did not expect you to bite the bullet that you would have a preference for a low IQ society, and therefore we should continue to have sex with our family members to achieve said low IQ society. But over here on the Christian side, well, we're just not willing to do that. So here's what's really important here to remember as the argument structure goes on. Daniel is literally giving a prescription at this point. He's giving you an ought. We ought to have dumb fucking people. That is his ought. My ought is different. My ought is you being intelligent does not restrict you from Christianity or Christian ethics. And we look at the IQ differentials in Christian nations, and we can see firsthand that that is true. So the thing is these are not mutually exclusive claims. When he says higher IQ leads to secularism, I could just as easily say higher IQ leads to Christianity, because all the Christians are way higher IQ. So the thing is which of those moral values do you not prefer? Which of them? Which of these Christians don't want degeneracy? They're fighting against it as well. The only reason you've made these successful inroads is because your enemies are so stupid that you can conquer them. And anytime you've tried to conquer the technologically advanced West, you can only do it via immigration, because you cannot collectivize to spare yourselves from the very nuclear war you're currently terrified of, because your people groups are too stupid.
Over. Go ahead, Daniel.
How much time do we have, James, for this?
90.
To the back for this
back and
period.
forth. We have until it's about 30 more minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's good. 30 more minutes. So, 30.
Yeah. Did you hear that quiver in his voice? He's not relishing having to go through this. for 30 more minutes. He's like, holy shit, what am I going to do? I'm totally memed myself by saying that it's okay to have low IQ societies. I'm getting my ass handed to me with every back and forth. How many more of these do I have to do? Mommy, help.
More minutes of 30 more minutes.
Baby,
Look
it's
at this,
about
look at
30
this.
more minutes.
Oh,
30 more.
okay, that's good. 30 more minutes. So, 30 more minutes of Andrew saying that Muslims are dumb. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Andrew could do this for another 2 hours. He could hand your ass to you for the next 2 hours. You are shitting yourself because you have to hold on to this insane ride for 30 minutes.
30 more minutes of Andrew saying that Muslims are dumb. Okay, that's great. I'll try to be more substantive than that. So just listen to this. Okay, so let's get into we have enough time to actually get into the IQ science. So first of all, Andrew, I'm not sure if you know this, but IQ is more highly correlated with race than it is with cousin marriage. So race, if you want to make this kind of IQ supremacist argument, then it will quickly become racial. And if you want to,
he's trying to play the bigot card here. He's trying to play the whole, white supremacy IQ thing rather than and the bell curve. I'm sure he's gonna. I don't know if he's even gonna mention the bell curve, but that's what he's trying. He doesn't have anything else. He's all of his other cards have been spent. He's just got the race card now. So pathetic.
Make that argument as supremacist argument, then it will quickly become racial. And if you want to make that argument, just be very clear about it. Does Christianity, like your worldview, promote higher IQ races and everyone being at the mercy of those higher IQ races? You keep making a might makes right argument that, oh, Muslims are at the mercy of us high IQ Christians. Okay, well then there are races that are higher IQ than others. So are the higher IQ races practicing benevolence by not wiping out the lower IQ races? That seems to be what your standard, what your morality actually entails pretty directly. So that please address the race issue.
I'll give you a chance to respond, Andrew, but I do want to be sure that this doesn't veer off topic too far.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really simple to address. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter if that's a correlate. You know what else is a correlate? Fucking your first cousin. That's a correlate. That's a massive correlate for lowering IQ. It wouldn't matter if it was inherent, let's just say, for instance, that white people had higher IQs on average than the average Arab, right? Let's just say it for the sake of a hypothetical. It doesn't actually matter that much because we know one thing that's going to bring the IQ down, fucking your first cousin. So the thing is, since that is the case, and it's objectively the case, right, I can still make the prescriptor that your societies would be a lot better off if you had 85 to 100 skilled laborers, 100 to 115 IQ professionals, at least in middle management, at least. And you said it yourself, right now you're terrified of nuclear war. We are terrified of nuclear war all around the nation, right, or all around Muslim nations. You're probably terrified of Zionists who are right in your own backyard. I get all of that, Daniel, but your people group aren't smart enough to defend themselves against these people. Christian nations are. We're smart enough to defend ourselves from people groups who want to wipe us out, like yours, right? So that's what's important here. The reason why you need to at least have
see the little jab there as well is we are concerned about people groups who want to wipe us out, like yours.
IQ out, like yours. Christian nations are. We're smart enough to defend ourselves from people groups who want to wipe us out, like yours, right? So that's what's important here. The reason why you need to at least have an IQ that's above, I prefer lower IQ, 70 to 85. The reason you need that is because you need to be able to defend and protect yourself. You can't have these strong families he's talking about if you can't defend these strong families he's talking about. You can't have these great values that he's talking about if you can't defend your own people group because you're at the technological mercy of another people group simply because you won't restrict a single behavior. That sort of rigidity has destroyed these once great lands. He's right. They did have beautiful art. They did have beautiful culture. They had beautiful everything. And then Islam came along and allowed them to inbreed themselves into literal stupidity.
God damn it, have I been saying this for how long? How many years have I been saying this shit? All the advantages, all the technological claims that and scientific claims that Muslims make as if it's Islam, it's not Islam. These were all pre-Islamic societies. These scientists, these astronomers, these doctors, these philosophers and poets, they were all pre-Islamic civilizations. Then Islam came with its barbaric hordes and took these lands and then claimed their innovations as their own, claimed their scientists and their doctors and their poets as their own, and made out as if Islam did this. No, Islam didn't do this. These were there before Islam, and then Islam co-opted them.
These once great lands. He's right. They did have beautiful art. They did have beautiful culture. They had beautiful everything. And then Islam came along and allowed them to inbreed themselves into literal stupidity. So again, how do we not build these better cultures? I've refuted every argument you've had. All you do is make my argument for me.
Go to Daniel, 90 seconds.
Yes. Is it on? Okay. So then also the other factor, you didn't really address the race issue and the logic of your argument that we have to promote race.
Okay. At this point, Daniel is going off the top of his head. He doesn't really have anything written down because that's why he was nervous for the 30 more minutes, because his pre-written shit is over now. Now he has to actually think on his feet. Unlike Andrew, who actually debates off his feet constantly, because in his Crucible or whether he's on the whatever podcast or wherever, he has to have all of this stuff right at the forefront of his mind, because he has to just, be able to run these things off very quickly or think very quickly and address arguments. Daniel doesn't do this. Daniel sits in his echo chambers all day, every day. You don't see Daniel debating on his show random people that come on the panel. You don't see him the only times he does any kind of confrontational debates is when he's in one of these modern day debate stuff or something similar, a well regulated, organized debate where he has to plan his opening statement, then the rebuttal, then he does a rebuttal of the rebuttal or whatever, and then he concludes. He's got that structured way of thinking and written down stuff. Now he's caught in an ad hoc moment, and he's screwed. He's fucked at this point. Andrew's going to wipe the floor with him from this point onwards.
That have high IQ, or we have to accept that higher IQ races can dominate the lower IQ races. Guess what? You want to talk about Israelis dominating Palestinians because of low IQ? Guess what? Which race actually has a representative that controls every member of Congress, like a handler, like an AIPAC handler? What race are the AIPAC handlers that are controlling Congress? What race are they? Are they white Christians, actually, Andrew? Because
it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter. Even if they're Jews, but they have high IQ, it again still demonstrates high IQ people and high IQ societies control low IQ societies. Even if Israel totally controls the United States and has AIPAC handlers on every congressman and senator's door, they are high IQ. It proves that they're high IQ and they can do it. Because they're high IQ, because they can manage and scheme and plan and manipulate. So it still doesn't refute the high IQ argument. This was something I listened to before, because I didn't listen to this entire debate, but I did listen to this bit through shorts. And you're still not addressing the fact that even if the Jews control America, they are a high IQ society and they can. But your society can't. Your society will never be able to achieve the thing that you claim that the Jews do in the United States, because your society are morons. They will never be able to have that level of influence in the United States. So you're still not refuting the IQ question here.
it seems like 300 million Christians can't take care of just maybe a handful, 10 million of that one particular race that has a death grip over your country. Maybe address that, Andrew, the elephant in the room, and then tell me about IQ. The other point that I want to make is that do I have to spell it out? Yes. Yeah, they're called Jews.
You see, that's why he gave him a look. No, because it doesn't refute the IQ question. That particular group, even if you believe that they run America, they do so because they're high IQ. So again, high IQ societies, high IQ groups have much better management of the resources of the world than the low IQ ones. If Muslims could do that in America and control all the congressmen and senators in America, then you would. But you can't, because you don't have the level of IQ that's required to achieve that.
They're called Jews, Andrew. It's called there are only 10 million of them. There are 10 million of them, but
And
they
they
seem to
control your
have
whole region?
they seem to have a lot of control. Yeah, the thing about Israel is that they're able to dupe dumb Christians to support wars that are going to bankrupt America and cause America to really collapse, so that they will have wars in the Middle East killing Muslim brown people, because you Christians apparently, by your argument, Andrew, are too stupid to realize that they're being destroyed by this one particular group. Gee, that's really high. That's really brilliant, Andrew. So
Actually,
So
it is,
that-
hang on, it's my turn.
I'm done. Okay.
Actually, it is really brilliant. Notice how Daniel is banking on the benevolence of Christians to save him from a higher IQ people group. Just like I said he would. Banking on the higher IQ benevolence of the higher IQ people group to save him from another higher IQ people group. Isn't
Exactly what I said. It's like your group is not going to benefit from this argument, because even if you have two high IQ groups that are jostling for power, you still are at their mercy. Whichever side comes on top, your idiotic society is still at their mercy. Regardless, you're still dependent on their benevolence not to kill you, not to wipe you off the face of the planet. So it doesn't matter. You didn't refute his argument.
that wild? It's almost like I predicted everything you'd say before you said it, because I did. This is very simple, right? His entire argument here that he's giving you right this second is, let's talk about how these higher IQ people groups are controlling you, the people I'm appealing to right now, to please stop them from dominating our entire region. 10 million against a billion. Dominated completely. And they have to appeal to somebody else to protect them because you don't have the requisite IQ or technology to protect themselves, and that's that. And that's why you have to have at least some sort of minimum IQ to have some sort of civilization, which can at least contribute to your own nations and people groups' protection. How could that be a worse standard? He wants to make it about race. He knows it's a red herring, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your race has the potentiality for, like, let's say 100 IQ. Let's just say that was the case. It was just stagnant at that for some reason. Then why would we want to reduce it below that? Why? That's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. So again, he makes my argument for me. Yes, he's appealing to the benevolency of Christians to save him and his people group. That should be the fucking, I wish you guys were smart enough to get it. If that was the case, that you understood this, right, that you're appealing to a smart people group to save you from another people group. That's why you guys have to get your IQs collectively higher. And you just said you prefer lower IQ societies.
Switch it to Daniel.
I didn't appeal to anyone's benevolence. I just pointed out how you're being used, how you're being treated like low IQ donkeys by a higher IQ race. That was my point. Like, I know you want to avoid acknowledging the point that I made very clearly, but the audience does. The audience understood what I was saying about that. So no, it's not about benevolence of Christians. Muslims don't need the benevolence of Christians to protect us. We've had a thriving civilization. And if Christians really want to win in this kind of argument, this kind of might makes right way, you're losing because of birth rates. Simple as. You're losing.
No, but that doesn't. They're losing because of birth rates, and that's another argument. It's because they're on this, what do you call it? This suicidal, empathy mission of trying to give Muslims. If the Christians didn't allow any Muslims into their country, they wouldn't have any problems with losing in birth rates, because their birth rates may be low, but they wouldn't have any contention from Muslims in their own nation. They having to compete with other Muslims in their own nation, which they allowed in. So, in all honesty, that argument doesn't actually matter. But it doesn't matter because literally in the last 2-3 years, it was the Muslims running around European cities holding placards with their Free Palestine, and they're still doing it now, and they're from the river to the sea chants, begging Christian nations to intervene from having the Jewish nation tear the Palestinians another asshole. So you were still begging the Christians for their no Muslim country could have countered that. Well, we saw what happened to Iran. We saw what happened to Hezbollah. So clearly you don't have the intelligence to do it for yourselves. That's why you were begging Christian nations to intervene for you, because you couldn't do it.
Because Muslims are not only having more children, more people convert into Islam as opposed to leave it. Whereas with Christianity, there's a massive swell of apostasy, people leaving Christianity. For what religion? Partly Islam, but the much bigger proportion, they're converting to atheism. They're leaving Christianity. Why is that? Why? It's partly because of a secular education. So this is, maybe you need to appeal to the benevolence of the atheists, the Jews, these other non-Christians, because your religion is bleeding out. I show the chart. I show the chart in terms of religious switching from Pew. Instead of...
By the way, I'm glad that I'm shocked that he wouldn't even acknowledge that apostasy in Islam is, as a lot of scholars and a lot of these muftis are saying, it'll come like a tsunami, which is it is happening. The apostasy out of Islam since the advent of the internet and the fact that people can travel away from these Islamic countries is the apostasy rates are through the roof. He doesn't want to mention any of that. The only reason Islam is growing is because of birth rates, not because of conversions, and in fact it's bleeding out because of the fact that people are now finding ways to get out of Islam. And the only reason it's holding on to the numbers that it has is because it is illegal to apostate in an Islamic nation. You could still get executed, even in countries like Dubai and Saudi Arabia, not to mention all the other godforsaken places where they will lop off your head the second you profess you're not a Muslim. So no, your numbers wouldn't even add up if Muslims were actually free to apostate. Make apostasy legal in Muslim countries and then come and tell me how many Muslims you've got.
Grandstanding and trying to puff out your chest, address these real problems, because there's not going to be a Christianity in 100 years if trends continue. And part of it is because of IQ. Ironically, part of it is because of IQ, because higher IQ is associated with higher atheism. So yeah, you're going to have people who will enjoy electric cars, maybe even flying cars and AI, but they're not going to believe in God.
90 seconds, we'll switch it over.
What's really interesting here is just pointing out that, once again, he's making the same exact appeal. The appeal, we're not making an appeal. We're not making an appeal. Islam has fantastic civilizations, as he's up here crying about how a nation of 10 million has enslaved all of them, according to him, right? How sophisticated can your civilization possibly be when 10 million people in the middle of a desert, right, are so technologically superior to the entirety of your civilization that even when your people groups have nuclear bombs, they don't feel threatened by it? This is a big problem. Again, this is not to talk about whether or not Jewish people are superior to Arab people, white people are superior to black people. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with one thing, which is the prompt. Which religion promotes a better society? Which religion produces better societies? And once again, I'm going to make this argument. It's pretty easy. If you think that people would have a preference, if you could ask them, which preference do you have? Do you have a preference to live in a society where 65% or more of the people are inbred? Or do you prefer to live in a society where that's not the case? And you're a Christian, I think you would answer yes. And I think if you were an honest Muslim, you'd answer yes too. And why? Well, it's because you still want medicine for your kids. You still want to be able to drive on roads. You still want to be able to have basic infrastructure, skilled laborers, professionals, things like this. And it's not that there's not many Muslims who aren't. There are. But there's not enough to meet the demand because they produce really stupid societies. And it's because of this reason. So it's like he just keeps on begging me to answer his questions about degeneracy, which has nothing to do with the debate. We're talking about which society is better.
Yeah, degeneracy has to do with society, bro. Degeneracy has a lot to do with society. It's like pretty much your entire platform, talking about degeneracy ruining society. So like the technology that the West has achieved, you're saying that, well, look at all these Muslims, the biomass is at the mercy of all these technologies, the fighter jets, the nuclear weapons, whatever. But that technological progress is victimizing all of us. We're all a victim. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, we all are facing this massive transhumanist behemoth, this hegemony, and it's threatening to destroy the human race. Do you see the interview that Peter Thiel did with the New York Times? And he's talking about like the Antichrist, and he's being asked by the interviewer, do you think the human race continuing is a good thing? And then Peter Thiel, he's this billionaire, actually paused for a second, and it took him a while to answer. And when he finally did answer, he said that, well, the human being in its current form, I don't know if that's something worth preserving, because they're transhumanists. They want to see a future where human beings are bionic. You have genetic engineering to actually have tailor-made babies based on people's preferences. You have uploading the consciousness to the cloud with Neuralink, Elon Musk's Neuralink, all of these crazy crazy technologies that are going to be imposed on us. Remember the whole thing, you will own nothing and you will be happy, get in the pod, eat the bugs. Remember all of this agenda, especially after COVID, that they're rolling out? That's because of technology. That's because of high IQ people like Yuval Harari, this Jewish genius who is telling, hey, you don't need to own anything to be happy. We're just going to give you porn and we're going to give you drugs and you're going to live in the pod, and that's going to be the future. That affects all of us. So it's not just Muslims who are the victims of this technological future. We are all victims of that dystopia.
Let us point out here that this is very important again, that everywhere Islam goes, regardless of the people group, the IQ goes down because of this. Let us also point out that that's not racial. That's every group. Every group that goes into anything to do with Islam, you end up with the IQ collectively lowering due to inbreeding. In order to oppose these very same technologies that he's proposing, transhumanism, things like that, you have to be able to make structured arguments, have reason. You have to be able to actually engage with these people. And if you can't do that, if it's the case that they have such a technocracy full of phaser guns, you got no fucking chance anyway. You have to at least have a high enough IQ to protect your people group from the very people you are claiming right now have a technological edge, which is Star Trek compared to the Apollo 13. So if that's the case, he still hasn't told you how having a low IQ is actually going to demonstratively help their people group at all oppose these types of technologies when the very secularists they claim are just gaining an IQ, because us dumb Christians, we just can't help it. We become secularists the second we get too smart, right? That's a big problem for them again. They would still need to value IQ being raised just enough to protect their people group, even if it was the case that Christians became secularists, even if that was the case. So always his argument goes back to low IQ equals benevolency of other people group, because you can't defend your people groups. You can't defend your peoples. You can't do it. We have an ocean between us, and only one of us is capable of attacking the other. And that's because of the massive distinction in technological prowess and organizational skills, which you're going to find with intelligence. And it's not a thing which is valued by Islam by his own admission. How could we not have better societies based on that? How?
Switch over.
Again, the benevolence argument. The only reason that you, Andrew, are able to have a platform on YouTube is that the benevolence of a bunch of atheist, God-hating secularists. That's the only reason you have a platform. They could ban you tomorrow. They say, yeah, this guy is flying too close to the sun. He's a little bit too hateful, and they ban you. Your entire ministry, your entire outreach is based on the benevolence of these God-hating atheists, people like Elon Musk, people like Peter Thiel. This is a problem for everyone who believes in God, not just Muslims. And I want everyone to recognize this fact. If IQ is the end-all, be-all, the way to maximize IQ is transhumanism. It's to actually genetically engineer human beings to have higher IQ, because IQ has a genetic basis, right? So the number one way to raise IQ is through genetic engineering, transhumanism. Tomorrow, if Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the people who are controlling Christian countries and the globe really, if they say that, hey, we're going to eliminate Christianity because actually it leads to lower IQ and we have to adopt atheism, and they mandate that, and anyone who says that they believe in God or believe in Jesus is actually a radical terrorist who's spreading hate, and the Bible is full of hate and we have to ban this in order to reach our utopia, okay, that's going to happen at the hands of atheists. So Christians are also at the mercy of the same kind of IQ fetishists who want to transform the human race. Wake up, Andrew, wake up. Stop this stupid argument.
If I ask you one question, I'll yield my time to you, and you can ask me one. Are you willing to answer it? How is it, Daniel, and I'll yield my time to you, that even if it's true that right now YouTube and these oligarchs can deplatform me tomorrow, and that is true, that me having a lower IQ is going to be somehow help me in that situation? That's my question. How is it that having lower collective IQs would help us against transhumanists, Daniel?
So the answer to my question has been this whole time that there are other values. So yeah, I might be stupid. I might be lower IQ than someone else, but I enjoy my life in other ways. I find value that is the answer to your question. To worshiping God, going and spending time with my family, having a wife who loves me. I don't have to worry about her cheating on me or having this long history at college or whatever. Having children that actually respect me and who will take care of me in my old age.
How does a high IQ preclude you from that?
Because it leads to atheism.
No, so
it's correlated with atheism.
So here, let me show you the circle. Hang on, let me just show you the circular argument.
I'm making an independent argument.
Yeah,
for
I know,
why
but let me show you the circularity.
These values are important.
Can I show you the circularity here?
Okay,
So your circularity of your argument is like this: having a lower IQ for me somehow means what? That I'm going to suddenly have better ethics? I'm going to suddenly be a better person? I'm going to suddenly be more benevolent?
Yeah,
you haven't, hang on, you haven't demonstrated that that's the case. And by the way, I would argue, in fact, Christian ethics are so overwhelmingly good that secularists who have no ethical system borrow ours. And so the thing is like, look, ultimately, you haven't made an argument. The circularity of your argument is just this. Look, you need to have a lower IQ. Well, how does that help our people group defend itself if we do? Well, it doesn't, but there's other values more important. Okay, does a higher IQ preclude you from that? Answer, no. No. So that's the problem with the circularity, dude, that I'd actually like an answer to. And then, to be fair, because this wasn't a back and forth, I'm willing to answer yours directly too.
Well, excuse me, sorry. Can I get water, James, actually? I can't really, my throat is pretty dry here. There is like a negative correlation between IQ and religiosity. There is a negative correlation with IQ because as you get higher IQ, you can go read Jonathan Haidt, for example. You can read Joseph Heinrich, for example. And in their books, they point to how higher IQ is correlated with more liberalization, more secularization, more atheism, more freedom for all, which causes the kind of degeneracy that you and I speak out against. So there is actually a bad consequence to a population with higher IQ because you'll get more atheism. So that's one problem that you can point out. And I'm just saying that, look, let's not be IQ fetishists. Even if you think cousin marriage is degenerate, disgusting, oh, you're fine. But still, higher IQ does not correlate with better societies. It's leading to a problem that is unsolvable, okay? This is a problem of higher and higher technologies that's going to cause us to live in a dystopia, a transhumanist dystopia. That is a problem for everyone. It's not like an own against the Muslims. It's an own against the human race. Peter Thiel with his ugly smug face is laughing at us, at Christians, at Muslims. They're laughing because they have this demonic antichrist future that they're planning for us. And it is based on technology.
Yeah, but this doesn't really respond again to the argument. The question here, when you say that it is true that IQ can have correlates to atheism, but we were talking about societies reverting to the IQ mean, the mean. The mean IQ of the societies you produce are between 1 to 2 standard deviations lower than the average Christian nation. The mean. Now, there is no correlate that Daniel will be able to show you that having average IQs leads to secularism. It doesn't. It doesn't. Show me the correlate if that's the case. You can't. And the average IQs in these nations, which is just between 100 to 115 professionals, middle management, it doesn't preclude them at all, or doesn't force them to secularism at all. We're talking about the means of society. The mean IQ of 2 standard deviations lower in many cases precludes you from having any sort of civilization, really. It really does. Just basic infrastructure and things like this. So Daniel would need to show you how having a 100 IQ, an average IQ, is going to lead everybody to secularism because societies revert to the mean. It doesn't. It doesn't lead to secularism. It's a lie. You have to have these higher IQs, much higher. Otherwise demonstrate it. And if he can, even let's just say he could somehow, then his prescription is actually just that he wants to keep the world at 70 IQ. That's crazy. There is nothing which precludes Christian ethics from people groups that have average IQs or even above average IQs. And there's plenty of smart people, by the way, who are Christians. Now, to kind of hone in on that argument, just remember this. Secularists, these really high IQ secularists, they've never been able to find a system of ethics ever that's better than Christianity, which is why they adopt it. So just pointing that out.
We're going to give Daniel the last 90-second response. Then we're going to jump into the Q&A. The floor is yours, Daniel.
Yeah, so the 100 average IQ, that's in the modern period after secularization has taken place. There's a Flynn effect. If you look at the IQ in the world, the average was below 100. The average IQ globally was around 80 in Christian societies and Muslim societies. That was the global average. Secularization is through like secular education and the Flynn effect. This is what has increased IQ so that the average is now at 100. So again, like if you need 100 IQ average to be successful, then you're basically saying all of Christendom has been a failure. Like somehow they were able to have an empire, like a Christian empire, throughout history, despite being 2 standard deviations lower in IQ than current day averages. Your argument is really self-defeating in so many ways. And again, like I have to say that, I think this is a problem that is the problem of transhumanism is affecting the entire world, Muslims and Christians, and we really have to come up with a solution. We can't just keep praising this idea of technology and IQ because that plays into the hands of the people that want to destroy the human race. They want to literally usher in the Antichrist. So let's try to take the bigger picture in mind rather than trying to own each other with arguments that are self-defeating.
We're going to jump into the Q&A. Folks, if you have a question, line up in the middle aisle, and we'll get to your question in just a moment. And then, Sean, if you can turn me up. Thanks so much, Sean.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any more gems in the Q&A, but I think we've already spent enough time on this. Christ, it's 2 hours. It took 2 hours for this thing. So, yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know, shall we finish off with something? Let me put this on. Here you go. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentle people. I don't really have anything to finish this thing off with. Let's just play some music and go with that, right? Let me see. We're just gonna go with this one. Actually, what is this?
Yeah. Where the streets can find.
Yeah. That sounds good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Big up yourselves. Blessings to Mr. Mossad. Blessings to you, Cheeky Chops. Blessings to you, Reanimator. I'm still waiting for your videos to come back, Reanimator. Please bring the Valley videos back. Lieutenant, blessings to you. Base Welshman, big up and blessings to you, sir. Last Dance, blessings, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you the other night on Saturday. Dwayne Jones, I think so. I don't know. I might be mispronouncing that. But blessings to you, my good sir. Thank you for coming. The new UG, Ollie, big up. May the blessings of Buddha be upon you. Again, who else did I miss? Did I miss anyone? I'm going through a lot of chats here. I don't see anyone that I missed, but then I may have missed somebody. There you go. Urban Roots, big up to you, sir, and blessings. Preton, I don't know, but blessings to you. My good sir, thank you for coming. Thank you. I'm just going through, there's a lot of chats. Well, if I did miss your name, I apologize. I hope I haven't missed anyone, but if I did, I'll catch you next time. Let me know if I missed you this time round. For now, peace.
Yeah. Where the streets can find. Concrete cracks with the weight of our shoes. Tales of survival carved in these avenues. The sun barely shines, but the voices are loud. Echoes of dreams in the heart of the crowd. On the streets of London, the truth will ignite. Underneath the grey, the people take flight. Protests and interviews, the voices collide. History is written where the streets confide. A microphone shakes in the hand of a youth, spitting raw words, sharp as the truth. Graffiti screams louder than the news ever could. The pulse of a city misunderstood. The alleys whisper secrets to the passing breeze. Stories of protests and restless pleas. A kaleidoscope of voices colors the scene. From the high rises down to the pavement sheen. On the streets of London, the truth will ignite. Underneath the grey, the people take flight. Protests and interviews, the voices collide. History is written where the streets confide. Banners wave like flags in the urban mist. Every face a story, every fist a twist. Underneath the rain, unity finds its way. The streets of London